That ain't gonna happen. All right.
Yeah, using the chair.
No, she said downstairs, and I guess the issue was they're trying to, yeah, I was trying to get at her or something. I said, it ain't gonna happen up here. There's two different cells. I said, what? I guess they had some bad blood between the two of them or something like that. One in one cell, one other, they be all right.
All right, how you doing?
So, Lucky. Try to have.
You're trucking them on.
One over here, two.
Wait, okay, I'll fit it right across.
And it's fine.
You want the one, send the one closer to the mic?
Yes,
Okay.
his attorney closer to. Yeah, his attorney to.
Okay.
Attorney on, McKee.
Who's attorney on the
You
key?
got some gray. Was that there?
It just happens when I kick the sides low.
Oh, okay.
I managed to bring Mr. Schneider along from the second trials, the 245. I was gonna ask if you would have the judge, if it comes to 245, if his witnesses aren't here, they can take a break in ours to get that case on your docket.
Yeah, he will, as long as we got a break.
So I'll have Henry just let you know if he talks to Mr. Oh, but he's not here.
Okay. So, did you hear that?
Here.
Because this exam has multiple witnesses and we have a 245.
No.
There's a possibility 245 may not have a break.
Do not have a witness.
So he's just asking you to break in between. Huh?
Might be.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you want to,
Okay.
one attorney to sit there.
Oh, no. He emailed this straight to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, good afternoon. Yeah.
Hey, Henry, I fixed it.
It's like an outlet somewhere around here, I think.
Because it had ladies at the time. But I did fix, I went back. And then I put that he stood in when the days he said he stood in.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
I'm sorry, because I was calling him like, hey, you got a 245, but I couldn't remember if you were him, but yeah, it was mixed up.
Yeah, it's a solid 20 minutes of blind panic for me. Just wanted to check in with you, and, yeah, I was gonna, when Mr. Moody gets here, I'm gonna see if he's got his witnesses.
I'm sorry, I had no.
Maybe we can come in during a break on the homicide.
Yeah, that'll be fine. I did let the judge know he said it.
Thank you very much. Guess I'll be in the hallway.
All right, thank you.
Go get him. Sure. Yeah.
And he is here, Henry.
Oh, thank you.
He is here, he's out there.
Okay, I'll probably go speak with him.
Okay,
And they get Mr. McKee and Miss Brady over here?
yeah, it took a minute, but they got him here. They said,
It's my sister.
have him to come out.
My little sister's in juvie right now in Michigan. Yeah, and today's her trial, so I'm watching it. It's yeah.
Put your systems on mute, please.
Sounds like Miss Brady has some family members in the Zoom.
Mr. Jose, Patty. Adam, you here?
Yes, sir.
Yo, when you start? Well, you don't have to get on. Thank you.
Are we up on YouTube?
Yeah, the judge.
You gonna be all right there?
Yep. I'm using my computer for most stuff anyway, so.
Oh, Judge, he's on defendant number 1, right?
That's correct.
Right.
He's on defendant 1, and Simmons is on number 2.
Both me and Adam are on number 2, but it doesn't matter where we,
Okay, so we,
both of us don't have to sit up front if we don't need to.
Are we ready for
313, 495, 4530.
You want to sit right there?
Is that okay? That would be great, yeah.
Awesome.
I have microphones over here, so.
Oh, yeah.
Just speak to us.
Oh, understand. I'll speak over here.
We were good yesterday, so.
Okay. I talk pretty loud. Usually it can be fast instead of loud. That's the problem.
Sure, 75597.
No, this would be fine. Thank you. I'll make sure I prepare my application.
Please, argue on this. I think that can help better understand. Absolutely.
Are they up yet?
Yes, yes, sir.
Bring them up, let's go.
Sorry about that.
You get it. I'll plug it. I'll just bring it around and then I'll plug it in afterwards.
Okay, after that. Today, switch.
See, just like, no, I try to short it. Okay. I'll see how much life I have.
Step with my partner.
Calling case number 2.
Go to that chair.
We have to run for our.
I'll unplug it.
You said okay, Kim? Calling case number 2155584, the people of the state of Michigan versus Devin McKee. Defendant number 1 is charged with count 1, homicide, felony murder, count 2, carjacking, count 3, robbery, armed, serious injury. The people of the state of Michigan versus Lanya Brady. Defendant number 2 is charged with count 1, homicide, felony murder, count 2, carjacking. This matter is scheduled for examination.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Hattie Abu-Zaid on behalf of the people, P75596.
Good afternoon, Judge Blaise Kearney from the Neighborhood Defender Service of Detroit, P83960, on behalf of Mr. McKee, who's present in the courtroom. Is that-
McKee, state the name for the record, please. Devin McKee. All right, thank you.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Tanisha Davis, appearing on behalf of Ms. Lanaya Brady, P71716.
May it please the court, Judge, my name is Adam Clemens, P number 77233, appearing on behalf of Ms. Brady as well. Ma'am, would you state your name for the record, please?
Lanaya Brady.
All right, you ready to proceed?
The people are ready to proceed, Judge. We would ask for an order of mutual sequestration at this time, with the exception for the officer in charge of this case, Detective James Krasuski, who sits behind.
You testifying today?
He will be testifying today.
Okay, then, oh, that's not gonna work. You can, I generally have no objection that he can come in after he testifies. But if he's testifying,
Judge, I would just state that he is a,
it's not a debate, it's not an argument, I'm telling you what my policy is,
okay.
okay? As to the, co-counsel, if you start it, you finish it. Start questioning, you finish the question. You can consult each other as much as you need, but there's no, double teaming, so to speak, where you get to add to your partner or your co-counsel's, argument, that doesn't happen. Okay?
We'll have to, I know.
Okay. All right. All right, any and all witnesses testifying today at trial or any time in the future within the courtroom are be denied their future testimony. I will give acceptance to officer charge once he testifies.
Well, Judge, he would be testifying last. He'd be testifying last in this case, Judge, so.
Okay. All right, also, this is running live on Zoom and on YouTube. And I have a number of people that are on Zoom are in the background. So, you go through it. The person whose phone is listed as Linda Sanders, I need you to turn your video on, please. I need to know your name and who's with you.
Linda Saunders and Benaya's mom. My daughter Ajane is here with me, and my husband James Saunders is here with me.
Okay, are they possible witnesses?
Yes, Judge.
Okay. Back up. Who are you related to?
I'm related
Go
to
ahead. Okay, you faded out. I didn't hear anything.
I'm Lanaya's mother.
Okay. That's your client. All right. Mr. Attorney, why would you say that they're witnesses?
Miss Brady's father and Miss Brady's mother both were in coordination and cooperation with the police during this investigation in terms of locating where Miss Brady and Mr. McKee were staying. So there was information exchanged, and there is a private conversation that's recorded between Miss Brady's father and Miss Brady's mother about how they're going to approach Miss Brady and what they're going to tell her to say during her interrogation. So to that extent, she's a witness.
Okay, what Ms. Brady would say during her interrogation.
That's correct.
If she would say anything. Okay, but they're her parents. They have the right to consult with her, and I guess I'm not.
Absolutely. The question though
how does
is,
that make them a witness?
because they may be not a witness at this particular hearing, but at a future hearing and trial, one can imagine a defense theory where one defendant's conduct was minimized by parties involved, and the other defendant's conduct was maximized. I think Mr. Abizade would actually agree with me in this regard. They extracted Miss Brady's father's phone in this case to extract evidence as part of the investigation.
Judge, if I could just clarify, that's not the same name that you're talking about.
No, I understand, but I'm talking about Linda Saunders, correct? She's the person we're talking about?
Right, but when we talk about her father, that's different than Mr.
Then James Saunders, I understand.
So the father, Mr. Saunders, has nothing to do with it.
That's correct. I have no objection to James
And
Saunders.
the sister has nothing to do with it.
That's correct.
Just the mother.
Correct.
My position would be that my mom would be allowed to watch the proceedings anyway. Whether it was, one, I don't think that the testimony is substantive to what happened to the decedent in this particular.
What happened, what?
To the decedent at all. I mean,
Was both charged with, when you find it, let's see, charged with felony murder and carjacking. I don't know if this is the same person on both. I don't know anything about the case yet.
understood.
And then Mr. McKee also has a robbery arm.
Your video.
Oh. Put your system on mute, please. Hey, you got anything you want to add?
Judge, I don't know exactly who would be, in terms of potential witnesses, it's possible that the parents of both of the defendants in this matter may be called as a witness by either myself or the defense. I'm not sure exactly who was on the Zoom. I think in the abundance of caution, I would ask that they would be sequestered from the hearing.
The request to prevent a juvenile's parents from watching criminal proceedings is somewhat outrageous when they don't have substantive testimony to add to the investigation.
I don't know if they do or they don't. If there's an issue that, the issue that Mr. Kearney has raised is that the mother of Ms. Brady could possibly be a witness in terms of having counseled or talked to her daughter about this incident. And, you know, that at some point could put her on the stand.
Right, but Judge, my client's statements wouldn't be able to be used against Mr. McKee. So whatever my client said or how she said it is not pertinent to what evidence will be presented against Mr. McKee because he would have root protection. So it's doubly not relevant for counsel to make that, to make that argument as it relates to what my client said and how it pertains to Mr. McKee.
All right.
And I don't intend to call her as a witness, Judge. I have no problem indicating that on the record. I don't think that Ms. Davis will either.
I don't.
Frankly, I'm frustrated that we're even having this proceeding. As counsel will tell you, I tried to prevent us from even having, given that what the court will hear from an evidentiary perspective.
Well, I don't know what I'm gonna hear. Well, I have to get into it to hear it. Mr. Kearney, you got rebuttal.
I have nothing to add, Judge.
All right, well, at this point, I would have to agree with Mr. Clemens. Anything that Ms. Brady said or says as it relates to Mr. McKee doesn't matter. Can't be used against them. So anything that her parents, her mother, or biological father, whoever may have counseled her on is irrelevant as it relates to your client. And as such, I'm going to allow her to remain in the courtroom, remain on Zoom. Okay. Now I got Miss Michelle Moore. Can you turn your video on, please? Ms. Moore, can you tell me who you are and what your relationship to this case is?
My name is Michelle.
You gotta take it off mute, please.
Can you hear me now, Your Honor?
So I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now, Your Honor?
Barely. Can you turn it up?
Yeah, it's all the way up to 100. I'm not sure what's going on.
Okay, I can hear you now.
You can hear me now? Okay, I'm the probation case manager for Devin McKee's juvenile case from juvenile court.
Judge, I apologize. This is being broadcast on YouTube and we're mentioning proceedings which are statutorily protected.
Oh, not here. They're being charged as adults.
No, I understand. That's not what she's referring to.
Yeah, she says that she's a case manager. She hasn't talked about anything about his case in juvenile.
Of the existence of it.
Well,
I would note my objection to the record.
I understand. All right, but as far as this case is concerned, she is not a witness, correct?
No, Judge, not a witness in this
All
proceeding.
right, thank you, Ms. Moore.
You're welcome.
All right, Mr. Williams, says Kevin Williams.
Yes, I'm sorry. Am I not supposed to be on here?
I don't know. Can you tell me your relationship to this case?
Nephew is my nephew.
Who's your who's
McKee.
Mr. McKee? Is he a possible witness?
No.
No.
No, you can remain on, Mr. Williams. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I was just told that I could watch.
Make sure you know who's on. All right, I got that's a Kelsey Saunders. Can you turn on your video, please? Can you state your name, please?
Kelsey Saunders.
And what's your relationship to this case?
Lanaya Brady is my sister.
Okay, she had anything to do with this case? All
Not in
right,
this proceeding, Judge, no.
no?
No,
All
Judge.
right, thank you. You remain on, ma'am. All right. Cirilla Brady. Can you turn on your video, please? State your name, please,
I'm Corella Brady.
and what's your relationship to this case?
Lanaya Brady is my little cousin.
Do you have anything to do with possible witness?
Not in this proceeding, Judge.
All right, thank you. You can remain on, ma'am.
Okay.
I'm James Saunders.
Not a witness in this case, or in this proceeding, Judge.
James Saunders, can you turn your video on, please? Can you state your name
James Saunders III.
and your relationship, please?
I am Lanaya Brady's brother.
Okay. All right, you can remain on, sir. Thank you. Tan-Chi Stubbs?
Yes, Ms. Stubbs is my client's sister as well. She has no bearing on the case.
All right, can you turn your video on? I gotta see who else is there, though. Ms. Stubbs, can you state your name, please?
Tasha Stubbs.
Okay, you have nothing to do with this case, right?
No.
As a witness?
No.
Is there anybody else with you?
No.
All right, thank you. All right, person who has phone just says Stephen. Can you turn your video on, please? Your name, please?
Stephen Howard.
And Howard, yes. You said Howard, correct?
Yes, sir.
And your relationship to this case, sir?
I'm Lanaya's older brother.
Okay, he is not a witness, correct?
No, I'm sorry, Judge, I didn't catch that name.
Stephen Howard. Stephen Howard.
No.
All right, you can remain on, Mr. Howard. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and last but not least, it says Paris Walker. You turn your video on, please.
Hello.
Okay, there you go. I can see you now. Mr. Walker, will you state your name, please?
Paris Walker.
And your relationship to this case, sir?
I am Lanaya Brady's eldest brother.
Okay, he is not a witness, correct?
He is not a witness in this proceeding, Judge.
All right, thank you, Mr. Walker. You remain on. All right. Any preliminary issues?
Your Honor, before we call our first witness, we move for the admission of equals number 1. This would be the medical examiner's report. I've had an opportunity to show Mr. Clements. I know that logistically in the courtroom, Mr. Kearney is away from me, but this is what the people are admitting is number 1 that comes in by statute.
Attorney, I assume you have a copy of the medical examiner?
Yeah, I'm missing 2 pages of the actual diagrams from the report, but they appear to be in correct order and consistent with what I expect them to be. I would just note, Judge, that I have attempted to locate the court's YouTube channel. I have not been able to locate his streaming on YouTube. I can log into Zoom and see if it works that way.
That's it, streaming live.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right.
Just
You gotta read it or publish it. I gotta see it. All I gotta know it first.
Yes, sir, I will, I can do that first. So the people, read in briefly the summary of people number one, that I believe I've been or stipulated to. And this is a Wayne County Medical Examiner postmortem report. It was authored by Dr. Jeffrey Hudson, Assistant Medical Examiner of the Wayne County Medical Examiner's Office. The autopsy was performed on the body of Timothy Marcus Perkins on January 23, 2021. And it states as follows. It is my opinion that death was caused by multiple stab wounds. Stab wound to the head listed as stab wound number 1. There was a stab wound to the left temporal scalp. The wound had no discernible blunt edge. The wound track proceeded into the temporal scalp and nicked the temporal bone where it ended. The direction of the was from left to right and downward when the body is viewed in the standard anatomical position. Associated findings included laceration, hemorrhage.
Hold on 1 second. Everybody that's on Zoom, please put your systems on mute. If you move around, you make noise, or there's background noise that's going to affect these proceedings. I'm going to have to take you off. So put your system on mute, please. Okay. Yeah, that's all. Yeah. Go ahead. I didn't put it on mute.
Thank you. I'll reread the last sentence of this paragraph. It reads, associated findings included laceration and hemorrhage along the wound track. Stab wound to the head listed as stab wound number 2. There was a stab wound to the right temple. The wound had no discernible blunt edge. The wound track proceeded from this injury into the superficial soft tissue of the temple only and ended. The wound track was from right to left when the body is viewed in a standard anatomical position. Associated findings include laceration and hemorrhage along the wound track. Stab wound to the neck listed as stab wound number 3. There was a stab wound to the post-lateral aspect of the right side of the neck. The wound had no discernible blunt edge. The wound track proceeded from this injury through the soft tissue of the lateral and anterolateral neck and partially severed the right jugular vein where it ended. The wound track was from back to front, right to left, and downward when the body is viewed in the standard anatomical position. Associated findings included laceration and hemorrhage along the wound track. Stab wound to the right shoulder listed as stab wound number 4. There was a stab wound to the right shoulder. The wound had no discernible blunt edge. The wound track proceeded from this injury through the right trapezius muscle, supraclavicular soft tissue, retroclavicular soft tissue, and into the subclavian soft tissue, where it partially severed the right subclavian vein and ended. The wound track was from back to front and downward when the body is viewed in the standard anatomical position. Associated findings included laceration and hemorrhage along the wound track. Stab wound to the right shoulder listed as stab wound number 5. There was a stab wound to the anterior aspect of the right shoulder. The wound had no discernible blunt edge. The wound track proceeded from this soft tissue of the anterior right shoulder and nicked the right clavicle where it ended. The wound track was from right to left when the body is viewed in the standard anatomical position. Associated findings included laceration and hemorrhage along the wound track. Stab wound to the right shoulder listed as stab wound number 6. There was a stab wound to the top of the right shoulder. The wound had no discernible blunt edge. The wound track proceeded from this injury into the soft tissue of the right shoulder and deltoid muscle only where it ended. The wound track was from right to left and downward when the body is viewed in the standard anatomical position. Associated findings included laceration and hemorrhage along the wound track. Moving to the second page, the last page. Stab wound to the right shoulder listed as stab wound number 7. There was a stab wound to the anterior right shoulder. The wound had no discernible blunt edge. The wound track was from right to left and downward when the body is viewed in the standard anatomical position. Associated findings included laceration and hemorrhage along the wound track. Additional injuries included an incised wound involving the webbing between the thumb and index finger on the right hand, listed in parentheses as defensive wound. A superficial incised wound was on the dorsum of the right middle finger, also listed in parentheses as defensive wound. A linear abrasion with a surrounding purple contusion was on the dorsum of the right hand. The abraded purple contusion was also on the dorsum of the right hand, at the base of the thumb. Also on the dorsum of the right hand, at the base of the thumb, was a linear abrasion. A linear abrasion was on the posterior right wrist. A purple contusion was on the posteromedial right wrist. On the knuckle of the right thumb, the interphalangeal joint, was an additional abrasion. And lastly, on the middle of the forehead, there was a purple contusion with an associated abrasion. A laceration with an associated round abrasion was on the right side of the forehead. There was a laceration with an associated abrasion on the right supraorbital ridge. Inferior and lateral to the right eye, there was a purple contusion with 2 small associated abrasions. A purple contusion was also on the bridge of the nose. There was a round abrasion on the left temple. A laceration was on the right occipital scalp. There were 2 abrasions on the right knee. There were 3 abrasions on the anterior left lower leg. The manner of death is classified as a homicide and it's signed by Dr. Jeffrey Hudson. And that again is for the decedent in this case, Mr. Timothy Marcus.
All right, any objection to the submission?
Not for this hearing, Judge.
None for this.
All right, it'll be admitted. All right, we have one other person just got on Zoom, name is Daphne McKee. Is that a possible witness?
Not in this proceeding.
Not in this proceeding for the defense.
No.
All right. All right, call your first witness.
And Judge, I will call my first witness, however, I would like to inform the court as well, not in this, during this witness, but I believe the following, I'll be showing some video, and the way I've done it with other courtrooms, I'm not sure if this court's procedure, but I've been able to share my screen via Zoom by logging in. If you do it that way, I'm always terrible with the volume, Judge, but we'll try to make it work.
All right. How many witnesses you got?
Judge, I anticipate.
Damn.
I
I'm trial again.
I understand.
No.
I understand, Judge. I would anticipate 5, with 1 being a longer witness. The OIC being the longer witness. And I know this court's policy and efficiency, and I'm going to get to what I need to get to, Judge. But I believe that would be what people would be looking for.
All right.
Thank you.
First name?
Jared Marble,
Oh,
J-A-R-E-D, W-O-N-D.
Last name is. I think
Womble.
your last name.
Womble,
Spell it.
W-O-M-B-L-E.
You swear our affirm to speak the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
I'm with here. Which one do you have a seat, please?
May I proceed, Judge?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Can you please tell us your name?
Jared Womble.
Mr. Womble, are you employed?
Yes, sir.
Where do you work?
City of Southfield.
And what do you do in the city of Southfield?
I am the sergeant of the investigations division.
How long have you been a police officer?
Approximately 23 years.
Were you working as a sergeant in that division in Southfield on or about January 23rd of 2021?
Yes, sir.
And did you have an opportunity to speak to someone by the name of Cecilia Perkins?
Yes, sir, I did.
And did you in fact meet with a person by the name of Cecilia Perkins?
Yes, sir.
What was the purpose of your meeting with Ms. Perkins?
Missing person. She had filed a missing persons report.
And who was the missing person?
Objection, hearsay.
Judge,
Well,
not-
he's trying to get Cecilia Perkins' testimony and without Cecilia Perkins here.
I'm not offering for the truth of what Ms. Perkins informed him of. I am offering this to show the effect that it had on the investigation that led up to where we are today.
Which is the truth of the matter, sir. So no, you can say that he received information and what he did based upon that information received, but you can't say what that information was.
Well, okay. When you spoke to Ms. Perkins, did she inform you of an individual that was?
Objection, Judge.
I'm not offering anything for the truth, Judge. I haven't even, there has been no name or any
Well,
specific.
you gotta let him get the question out, like if he has a whole question first, and before you answer it, if there's an objection, then I have to rule on it.
Without telling, may I proceed, Judge?
Yes.
Without telling us the name of the person that was provided to you by Ms. Perkins, did Ms. Perkins provide a name to you about who was missing?
Yes.
And did Ms. Perkins inform you of other information regarding this person that was missing?
Yes.
Did Ms. Perkins give you information about the vehicle that this person might have been driving around that time?
Yes.
Did Ms. Perkins indicate to you the last time she saw the person that she reported missing?
Yes.
Did Ms. Perkins give you specifics about the vehicle in terms of, without telling us what it is, the license plate number of the vehicle that was associated with the person missing?
Yes.
Were you able to ascertain during your interview of Ms. Perkins whether they were in a relationship?
Yes.
Did Ms. Perkins indicate to you the occupation of the person that was missing?
Yes.
And did Ms. Perkins also give you the associated phone number of the person that she reported missing?
Yes.
And was this all reported missing on, sorry, you responded to the missing person issue on January 23rd, is that right?
That's correct.
Based on the information that she gave you, were you able to further the investigation as to the person that she reported missing?
Yes.
Were you able to look at certain databases regarding the vehicle that was provided to you, the license plate number regarding the person she reported missing?
Yes.
Based on your investigation of that, were you able to get a result of where the last known location where the license plate number associated with the vehicle that Ms. Perkins had indicated to you regarding the person?
Yes.
Where was that vehicle last seen?
Objection, Judge. Judge, there's a reason that the objection is calls for hearsay and not direct hearsay, because you can phrase questions that will cause the witness to give an answer that requires them to use hearsay in order to answer the question, but not have the answer be it. So what Mr. Abuzaid has done is said, did these events occur? And then what was the result?
I don't know the objection. I don't know the legal.
Calls for hearsay. That's what I said, calls for hearsay.
Well aware of
Okay,
hearsay.
well, hold on, we're gonna do this civilly and professionally. One at a time. You gotta let him finish his argument or his motion, and then you get to get yours, you'll get rebuttal, and then I'll make a decision.
I think, Judge, the prosecutor is essentially trying to get Cecilia Perkins' testimony in about who was missing, when, what car they were driving, where they were last seen, without her actually being here and subject to cross-examination. The detective needs that information in order to answer these questions, but Ms. Perkins isn't going to be subject to cross-examination. Hearsay is prohibited. This does not meet an exception, despite the fact that the questions have been artfully crafted to not, by the letter, violate the hearsay rule. This officer has no basis of knowledge for answering this question without relying on Ms. Perkins' hearsay.
Judge, I certainly appreciate the compliment, but I'm not trying to get into specific hearsay issues, Judge. I'm offering this information, the information that I'm attempting to elicit from this officer, not to establish the truth of what Ms. Perkins told him, but to establish, based on the information that she told him, how he was able to further the investigation is categorically not hearsay.
Okay, well, no, I have to disagree. A lot of it has been hearsay. Even the way it's phrased, if you phrase a question that requires that the answer, and they do, did she give you information on this? And you're saying what this is, you're saying what the hearsay is. You're saying what she said. Okay, so, you know, I guess my issue at this point, give me an offer of proof. Why do I even need to know it?
Judge, I think the background information helps us get to where we are today in terms of the defendants in this particular case, based on the information that was provided.
Why, again, the question is, why do I need to know it? All I need to know are the elements of this offenses. If he is involved in this case in some kind of way that led up to it, then he received some information, period. Based on that information, he did A, B, and C. A, B, and C is not hearsay, it's what he did. And that can come in, that's all I need to know. I don't need to know all this, the rest of it. It's not a trial.
I understand, Judge. Ms. Perkins is here for court, like to hear from that, but I'll move on.
All right.
Sergeant Womble, based on your investigation, at some point, Sergeant Womble, during your investigation, was there, based on the investigation and what Ms. Perkins had informed you, was there a search warrant executed for some documents in this case?
Yes.
And based on the information, was there information received from that search warrant?
Detective Tomasino received cell phone analytics, and he did a search warrant for Uber as well.
Uber?
Yes.
And based on the results of the search warrant for the cell phone analytics and Uber, were you able to get information about a particular individual, telling us what individuals that is?
Detective Tomasino was, yes, and he relayed that information to me.
At some point, did you relay that information to the Detroit Police Department regarding the individual's name as a result of the search warrant that was from the cell phone analytics?
Detective Tomasino relayed that information to DVD.
Thank you. Nothing further this time.
I have no cross.
Yeah, I just have a couple of questions.
Okay.
Sergeant Womble, what investigation tools did you use?
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
I'm sorry, I apologize. What investigation tools did you use?
So Detective Tomasino, through Cellbrite and through several other electronic databases.
Okay, I can't take any of this. You know, it's, the officer is telling us, but not. I mean, you had some type of supervisory position over Detective Tomasino, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I get.
He's just saying what someone else did, or what he, you know, I can't take that.
I understand. That's why I was asking him specifically, what investigation tools did he use, not Detective Tomasino, because, and that's just based off the question that was asked by counsel or prosecutor.
Right. Did you, my question is, did you do any of the investigation yourself?
No.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have to.
Any redirection?
No, sir.
All right, thank you, you said now.
Yes.
CR4, or the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Come on over here. Was it the right question? You have a seat right there, Mr. Lewis? All right. Hold on a second. Mr. Lewis? You're gonna be asked a series of questions. First by the prosecutor, then the defense attorneys may have some questions for you, and I may or may not have a question for you, all right? You have to answer all your questions out loud, verbally, using words.
Okay.
You can't just shake your head or say, you have to say yes, no, whatever the answer is, okay?
All right.
Also, when you ask the question, please just answer that question and stop. If it's a yes or no type question, just say yes or no and stop, all right? We all, if they need additional information, they'll just ask another question. We all have a tendency when talking about an event, that you may not have the informatics, it's in the racket. Okay, this happened, this happened, and this happened, and this happened. If you do that, I'm gonna miss it. If I miss something, I'm not making it. I don't know anything about it. Everything I know about this case is what I hear in this courtroom. That's why I get it one question, one answer at a time. That way I can understand it. Okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. And last but not least, because we're all wearing a mask and barriers, it, this kind of muffles the sound and muffles the voice. I need to please keep your voice up so everyone can hear you. And so, move the mic down a little bit if you need to. That will help amplify your voice. Thank you, sir. May proceed.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Can you please tell us your name?
George Lewis.
Mr. Lewis, are you employed, sir?
Pardon me?
Do you work, sir?
Yes.
And what do you do for a living?
Garbage truck.
Are you a driver?
Yes.
Were you working on January 21st of 2021?
Yes.
How long have you been a truck driver, or a waste management driver?
Well, I kind of have to sum it up like this. I worked for the city of Detroit. I had 18 years, and then Advanced Disposal took over. I had 7 years with them. And now Waste Management owns the company.
So you've been operating these vehicles for quite some time, right?
Yes.
Were you working on January 21st of 2021 in the morning hours?
Yes.
Did you happen to operate your vehicle in a route that would encompass the area of West Edsel Ford Service Drive around Elmer in the city of Detroit?
Yes.
And did you notice anything unusual on your route as a waste management driver?
Well, this is my normal route. I was going down the street picking up cans, and then as I got to the end, I made a left turn. I saw some activity in the vehicle.
Okay, I'm gonna stop you there. You said you made a left turn. Before you made the left turn, what street you were being on?
I was working on, I think it's called St. Lawrence.
And did you make a left-hand turn off of St. Lawrence?
Yes.
And what road or street would that be that you made a left-hand turn?
It was a service drive, that's all I remember.
Now, when you made that left-hand turn, could you tell us approximately how fast you think you were going?
Well, I assume maybe 5-10 miles an hour, because I pick up garbage cans.
Now, as you're going about 5 to 10 miles an hour on that service drive, you indicated that you saw something.
Yes.
What did you recall seeing?
I just saw a lot of motion going on in the hand movement. Actually, I thought it was a guy slapping his girlfriend around or something.
Okay. Now, when you see this hand movement, and you thought it was a guy slapping a girl or something, was there any vehicle around?
Say that again?
Was there a vehicle that this was going on around?
Yeah, no, it was just that one vehicle.
Yeah, right. The one vehicle that you saw.
Yes.
What kind of vehicle do you remember it being?
Well, as I recall, it was a small car. It looked to be lime green.
And you said it was a small car. Was it a car or SUV or something?
It was a car.
Could you recall how many doors are on the car?
It appeared to be 4 doors.
Now, when you're traveling on the service drive and you see this what you believe to be a lime green vehicle, a small 4-door vehicle, could you tell us where the headlights of that vehicle were facing in relation to where you were going?
the headlights were, the vehicle was facing me.
Did you have an opportunity to pass this vehicle where you saw this commotion?
Yes.
Can you explain the hand motion that you described earlier? What exactly do you recall saying regarding hand motion?
I just seen a swinging motion.
Were you able to see the individual that was swinging, whether they were in the car or outside the car?
No.
When you were approaching this vehicle, was there anyone outside of this vehicle?
Yeah, there was one person.
Describe what this person looked like.
Well, they had on dark clothing. And it was on the side of the vehicle,
I'm gonna stop you there. When you say side of the vehicle, which side of the vehicle do you recall?
driver's side.
And can you describe the build of this individual?
Really not sure, but it was a small built person.
Were you able to note the complexion of this person?
No, I really couldn't because they had on the surgical masks and they had a cap on and dark clothing, so I couldn't.
And did you see just one individual or more than one individual outside of this vehicle?
No, I only saw the one person, but as I was passing, I could tell it was other people in the vehicle.
The person that you described earlier as a small build, could you tell approximately how tall it was based on your perception?
Well, I'm just assuming and guessing, I would think it was like 5'5", 5'6", somewhere in there.
Now, you said that I believe you said there were some other people that you remember being in the vehicle?
Yes, they got their cars, you see them, because my truck sits up high, so as I'm riding past, now the top of the vehicle is on my side.
Now, would this vehicle be towards the left or the right side of your truck as you're going down the road?
It was on the left side of my truck.
And were you able to pass this vehicle with the commotion that you saw?
Yes, no, that person was already outside of the vehicle once I passed it.
Okay. And once you passed it, did you continue looking in that direction?
Yes, I was looking in my rearview mirror, trying to see what I could, see what was going on. I thought maybe they was in trouble or something, having car trouble. I didn't know what it was.
Now, as you approached the vehicle and as you passed the vehicle, what was the speed of your car after you passed the vehicle? If you remember.
In between 5 and 10 miles an hour.
Now, one moment. Did you see any doors open on the vehicle?
It appeared to be, I saw 3 doors open.
Which doors do you remember seeing open?
I think it was one was I think the passenger door, another 2 rear doors were open.
That's 2. Do you recall what the third door was?
No, I really don't remember.
Were you able to tell the make or model of the vehicle during your observation of it?
No.
Now, as you passed the vehicle, did you see anything else come out of the vehicle?
No, I was looking in the rear mirror. That person I seen standing beside was reaching in the back. By that time, I had got to the other end of my turn, and I turned off.
I'm gonna stop you there and ask, you said you saw someone reach in the back of the vehicle, is that what you said?
The same person.
The same person that you described, the small build, 5'5" to 5'6"?
Yes.
And what did that person appear to be, a male or female to you at the time?
Couldn't tell.
And as you had an opportunity to view this, did you see anything in the hands of the person that was outside?
It appeared to be a hammer. That's what made me think something was wrong with the car or something. I don't know what it was. I saw a hammer. claw hammer,
Can you describe the hammer based on what you recall?
a basic claw hammer.
Now, based on what you told us and based on the fact that you initially thought it was an incident involving a male and a female, did you notify anyone about what you saw?
So as I got to the end of where I turned off at, I called the police. And then when I continued back working, and then I got a call from, I guess that's the dispatch operator, and told me I needed to go back because officers needed to speak with me.
Okay, and after you received that information, did you end up going back to speak to officers?
Yes, I did.
Did you tell the officers what you had seen?
Well, when I pulled up, one officer told me the guy was in pretty bad shape and asked me, did I see anything?
And what did you say to that?
I told him what I saw. By that time, I guess it was a detective or whatever. Another car pulled up. He told me to sit in his car, and he asked me the same question. By that time, the officer came back over to the car that I was sitting in, and he told us the guy didn't make it.
Now, did your vehicle at the time, that truck, have any particular cameras that were attached to it?
Yes, we got a system all around the whole truck called Third Eye.
I'm sorry, can you say that one more time?
We have a system around the whole truck, and it's called Third Eye. Drive cam.
Third Eye,
Third Eye, that's what it's called.
like 3?
I guess, I just know that's what it's called.
I just want to make sure I heard that correct. Okay.
Mm,
Now, where are those cameras located on your vehicle?
Front, side, and rear. And also the inside, where the driver is.
Would that be inside the cab?
Yes.
Now, after this incident that you observed, that you described on January 21st of 2021, did you ever see any of the camera footage from any of the cameras attached to your vehicle?
Yes, I did.
And specifically, did you have an opportunity to see a video from the front of your vehicle that was from January 21st of 2021?
Yes, I did.
And is what's depicted there in the early morning hours on January 21, 2021, would that be a fair and accurate?
Yes.
Well, let me finish the question.
Yes.
Would that be a fair and accurate depiction of what you saw on that day?
Yes.
And did you also have an opportunity to see a video from would be the rear of your vehicle?
Yes.
Okay. And what is what is depicted from the camera footage in the rear of the vehicle a fair and accurate representation of what you saw on that 21st, 2020?
Yes.
At this time, I would move to admit the short videos consisting of the full front and also what's listed as full other from the camera footage that was retrieved from the vehicle of Mr. Lewis.
Any argument?
Yes, Judge. Number one, the witness hasn't identified anything yet. He's asking if he saw some videos. He hasn't shown the witness an exhibit yet. The second issue is, as the witness has described his opportunity to observe it, because I heard the testimony, it was that he saw this incident as he drove past and then saw parts of it through his rear view mirror. Neither of those are from the front of his truck or directly behind his truck. If the prosecution wanted
It would be from the front, possibly the side and the back.
Right, but the question that Mr. Abuzaid asked was this camera angle an accurate depiction of what you saw that day?
Yeah, I agree. You're gonna have to start to play the video, you have to stop it, and you have to identify the video, that is the type of video that he has seen. And just because Also, the issue is, has he seen the video? He said he saw the video. If he can identify it as coming from his truck on that day and time, then it's a whole lot to be argued about at that point. So, why don't, let me, hold on, let's share.
Well, Judge, I can just show him off of the screen before we publish it, if the court wants to do that. If he can identify it, then I can certainly.
As long as you can identify it, yeah. We'll take it from there.
And first, the witness, Judge?
Well, no, share it on the screen. You just show it, start to show it, to see if you can identify the video. If you can identify the vehicle, I mean, if you can identify it on yours, I could be identified on the screen, and then we can just play it. Or play the sections that you want to play. If it's shown from your computer, no one else can see it.
Judge, I'm logged in. May I share that particular still shot of the screen and see if this was identified?
Yeah.
Mr. Lewis, can you see what's on the screen there, sir?
Yes, that's St. Lawrence Street.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
St. Lawrence Street, that's the dead end, but not, the dead end you're looking at is I-94.
And would this particular image be from the camera affixed to the front of your vehicle?
Correct.
And did you make, as you indicated earlier in your testimony, you said you made a left-hand turn, is that right?
Correct, there's a street right there that comes to an end.
And when you get to that end of the street there, did you make a left-hand turn?
Yes.
And are you familiar with this particular footage from your waste management vehicle?
Yes.
Have you had an opportunity to review the contents of this particular segment of your camera footage on the vehicle?
Yes.
Your Honor, I believe I have sufficient foundation to admit what would be marked as people's number 2, labeled as video number 1 from the waste management video system, listed as full front.
No objection.
Any objection? No. All right, be admitted.
Thank you, Judge. And for the record, I will be playing approximately the 0-second mark to the 45-second mark.
This is exhibit what?
This is going to be exhibit number 2, Ben.
All right.
I'm going to pause it right here at the 19-second mark and just indicate for the record, there appears to be a delay I have a version on my computer that I don't believe would do that, if the court wants to view it after we play it on this method.
I don't understand.
There appears to be a delay, it's a little choppy, and I think that's a product of being on the Zoom platform. I have a version on my computer, if after we publish to the court via Zoom, if the court wants to see it without the choppiness, essentially. I have it.
No, I got it.
Okay, then I'll continue to see.
Thank you.
Resuming play at the 19-second mark. Okay, I stopped at the 46-second mark. Would the court like to see the other version without the delay? Or
No, no.
Okay. Mr. Lewis, I'm going to show you something else here. One moment. Mr. Lewis, I have what's on here is proposed exhibit number 3. Do you recognize this particular angle from your vehicle?
That appears to still be St. Lawrence Street.
And would that camera be attached to the rear of your vehicle?
Yes, have to be the rear, have the rear camera showing me down.
And are you familiar with the footage here and the rear of the camera from your waste management company?
Yes,
And does it fairly accurately represent what you saw on the day in question?
yes.
People move for the admission of number 3.
No objection.
No objection.
And for the record, that'd be people's number 3, that's listed as video number 2, and the file is listed as full other. And I'll be playing approximately the 0-second mark to approximately 1 minute and 30 seconds. I'm going to stop it right there. Hope it stopped. This would be a little delay, but I stopped at the 53-second mark. One question for you, Mr. Lewis. When your vehicle is passing this vehicle here, are you looking in some direction to see what's going on at this time?
I'm looking in my rearview mirror on the driver's side, my mirror.
And as you're passing the vehicle, did you have a chance to turn your head and look?
Yeah, looking at what we're looking at now.
Okay. Resuming at the 53-second mark. Judge, I let it go a little bit longer. It's a 1 minute, 38 seconds where I stopped it. I will unshare my screen this time. Mr. Lewis, you indicated a little earlier in the testimony that you don't recall the complexion of the individual, is that right?
No.
And do you remember making a statement to the police on the day this happened on January 21, 2020?
Yes.
With looking at that statement, maybe refresh your memory as to what you told the police, the complexion of the person that you saw outside the vehicle?
Yes, yeah, I really couldn't tell what nationality or what person, you know.
Well, I'm not asking nationality, I'm asking you, with looking at a report that you made, maybe refresh your memory as to what you told the police regarding the complexion or the skin color of the person that you saw outside the vehicle.
Objection. He hasn't said he doesn't remember. He said.
He hasn't said he doesn't remember. He answered. He couldn't tell. Hold on. He said he couldn't tell. So you can't suggest that he needs to refresh his memory. I mean, he has to say, I can't remember, and then you could say, if reviewing that would help. But he said that, no, he couldn't tell.
Okay, I remember definitely earlier, Judge, but I take the court's position. May I, Judge?
Go ahead.
Mr. Lewis, do you remember the person's skin color or complexion as we sit here today that you saw back on January 21st of 2021?
It appeared to be light skin.
Light skin, okay. And when you say light skin, would that be lighter than your complexion?
Oh, wow, that's hard to say. It could be my complexion or a little lighter.
Okay, fair enough. Just one moment, I think I'm almost done here. Mr. Lewis, you indicated that you saw the person with a hammer, like a basic claw hammer. Do you remember saying that?
Yes.
All right. When you saw the person with a basic claw hammer, where were they in relation to the vehicle that was on the side of the street?
They were on the side of the vehicle.
Was it the driver's side or the passenger side of the vehicle?
It was on the driver's side.
Thank you, Judge. I don't think I have anything further this time.
Good afternoon, Mr. Lewis.
Good afternoon.
How are you today?
Fine, you.
Doing okay. So I don't have a ton of questions for you, but I wanted to start with the time of day. What time of day did you make these observations? And it doesn't be exact, but morning.
It was between 9 and 10 o'clock.
Okay, so it was early in the morning.
Yes.
When do you start your shift?
I started at 7.
You start at 7, so you're within the first couple of hours of your shift.
Yes.
How long does your shift go until?
Well, we have no designated time. We're done with everything.
Till you're done?
Yes.
How long does that typically take you?
Sometimes 12, 14 hours.
So you work long shifts?
Yes.
Okay. You build up an endurance?
Yes, I've been doing this for over, like you said, those days that I gave you years with each company, I've been doing it that long. I guess I had about 20 years.
20 years of doing it. Okay. And you work long hours that entire time?
No, not all the time.
This particular morning, were you especially tired or anything like that?
I was just beginning.
Okay. So you were still, had you had your morning coffee?
Yes. Yes.
Now, I think you said you were driving about 5 to 10 miles an hour as you passed this vehicle. Is that correct?
Correct.
And when you were driving past, that was about the average speed.
Yes.
That you normally drive.
Okay. Yes, that's the reason why they have all these devices in our trucks, mainly keep an eye on us.
Right. And to protect you guys if someone makes an allegation, you can knock over their house or something.
Right.
So I see that you have glasses on today.
Yes.
Do you wear those when you're driving your truck?
Yes.
Okay. Is that company policy?
I don't think it is.
Well, not all of those. I would try.
All right.
So were you able to see clearly what you saw that day?
No.
Okay, why weren't you able to see clearly?
Because it looked like the car had 10.
Oh, right. And I'm not going to ask you questions about, I'm asking you sort of generally, were you able to see things normally?
Yes, I have to. I pick up garbage cans already. You know, I have to judge on the distance between cars and everything, so my judgment has to be accurate.
And were you on any kind of medications that affected your ability to perceive things or operate that machine?
No, sir, I'm on no medication. Island.
And I don't mean any offense by this, were you intoxicated in any way?
No, sir.
And the observations you were making while driving in the truck, you were, the driver's seat of that truck is on the left side of the vehicle, is that correct?
No, it's on the right side.
So it's European style, British style.
No. Some of our trucks are, but my Pacific truck, I operated from the left side.
Oh, so you're on the left side, like normal.
Like normal, like you're driving your regular car, normal side.
And so you, your side of the vehicle was closer to the vehicle you were looking at than if somebody was sitting on your passenger seat.
Correct.
And as you pass by this vehicle, you came in within what, 15 feet of these people?
No, about the same distance me and you are.
Oh, so even closer, we're talking, what, 60
See,
feet?
my truck sits up high. The car lower, so basically when I'm passing, we're looking at the top of the car. You know what I'm saying?
And as you went by, you used your rear view mirrors to be able to see what was going on.
Yeah, before we get to that, I'd like to just establish for the record the distance in which he said, the council represented about 6 feet. I wouldn't have an objection. Between the distance where he was to the car.
Understood.
Thank you.
Now, as you drove past, you continued making observations through using your rear view mirrors.
Yes.
And these are large mirrors that are on the sides of your truck, correct?
Correct.
And do you have any way to see your camera footage from within your truck?
No, you have to call, the police had to get that, call and get that information. Us drivers have no access to none of that.
So you're not pulling up the rear view?
No, we're not, we can't, there's no possible way to do that.
Now, when you were, after this happened and after you called the police, at some point dispatch told you to come back.
Yes.
And when dispatch told you to come back, you said you spoke with a number of police officers, okay?
Correct.
Is everything all right on the report? All right. I'll make those officers you spoke to, the number of interviews you did clear. So when you first showed up, did you talk to officers in regular patrol uniforms?
Yes.
Okay. And what did those officers look like?
It was two. One guy was sort of heavy set and one was slender.
Okay. Was the one heavy set guy like a big white guy?
Yes.
And were those the only two patrol officers that you sort of told your rendition to?
Well, they was the first ones I saw, but then I think they sergeant or somebody else pulled up.
Were they wearing plain clothes?
No, this one guy was in the uniform.
Was it a white uniform or a blue uniform?
Oh my God, I think it was blue.
Now, those first two officers that you spoke to, you had just been told by dispatch to come back to the scene.
Correct.
And so you gave this interview within moments of, within 30 minutes of this happening.
I would say so.
Now, at that time, today is April 8th of 2021. The incident you've been testifying about today, that happened about 3 months ago.
Yeah, back in Jackson.
And it'd be fair to say that when you were sitting there on the scene talking to those two officers 30 minutes after this incident happened, that your memory was better then about what happened than it would be now.
Well, actually, what happened, I'm gonna give you every detail. Two officers, he told me the guy was messed up kind of bad. By that time, another sergeant pulled up. He asked me to sit in his car. While I was talking to him, my boss was calling, trying to make me go back to work. So sergeant told him, no, he can't leave now. This is not a domestic thing. This is a, I think he said homicide. And I could not leave. And then the two officers that came on the scene first, the one that was asking questions at first, he walked back to the officer's car and told us the guy didn't make it.
And so when all that, and what I wanted to ask you about that is that at that time, and when we first talked to those first two officers, your memory is probably a little bit better then than it is testifying here about 3 months later.
It's the same.
It's the same, okay. It'd be fair to say that you told those first two officers that you spoke to that the people you saw were white or Hispanic. Is that correct?
I said, yeah, they could be because it was light complected.
And you weren't lying when you were talking to the officers, correct?
No, because like I said, and I'm gonna keep saying it, only saw one person. That person had a mask, so I couldn't tell the built. They had black clothing on and a black cap.
And when you were talking to those officers, you were just trying to help them figure out who did this.
Well, no, they asked me what I saw, and I told them what I saw. And that sheriff, whatever he was, he asked me the exact same questions. Then somebody from the crime lab or whatever came also asked me those same questions.
Right. And you did tell the initial officers that who you saw was two young guys.
No, what I told them was I only saw the one person that was on the side of the car, but as I was going past, I could tell there was other people in the back of the car. In the inside of it. I couldn't see because my truck is tall. And I couldn't see who they were or what they were.
And did you notice if these officers you were speaking to had body worn cameras on?
I don't remember.
After you left, at some point they brought you back to the station to do a written statement, is that correct?
To the station, no.
No, so they did a written statement on scene that day?
Yes.
And was the detective or officer that did the written statement, was that the first detective you talked to or someone you talked to?
I mean, when I first came back.
Yeah, well, we know we've been talking about control officers, but the person that took your written statement, was that a detective or was that a control officer?
I'm not sure what it was. I don't know if it was from the crime lab or a detective. I'm not sure.
Were they in plain clothes?
I don't remember.
There's I'm trying not to reveal too much in front of you, but there's a changing set of statements that occur.
Well, you wanna deal with the statement, deal with the statement. I don't need to know who you talked to and, I mean, how is it relevant to the charges in the crime?
So there's statement one, which is exculpatory. There's.
What do you mean exculpatory?
The description that the witnesses agreed to is not consistent with my client.
Well, so he didn't heard any of that. He just from this one.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna go in, you gotta ask him. He said he didn't give a statement on what they look like. He couldn't tell what they look like. He described one person. That's his testimony. He described one person. That one person, he couldn't tell us they were black, Hispanic, whatever. If they were black, they were light skinned. That's it. Didn't know if it was a man or a woman.
That's right.
There was somebody else in the back seat. You didn't know if that was a man or a woman. That's all we got. You want to deal with that, deal with that. But I don't need to know all this other stuff. It's not relevant.
Understood that there is body worn camera impeachment that makes complete another officer.
I don't need to know about all this other stuff. You got an issue with body worn camera? Present it when it's your turn.
Understood.
Deal with his cross.
I do need to lay the foundation for an impeachment. I need to complete later. But I've laid the foundation for that. And there are components of this that go to another witness. And so all I'm trying to establish in this witness is how many different police officers he talked to and which one he gave the written statement to. If I leave that this way.
Why did you ask him? You really can't give the answer to it.
Understood.
He doesn't know.
Understood. I have no further questions.
Good afternoon, sir.
How you doing?
Sir, my name is Adam Clements. I'm gonna ask you some questions on behalf of my client. If I speak too fast or ask you a question you don't understand, let me know and I'll try to ask you a better question, okay?
Okay.
And I'm gonna also do my best not to be repetitive. I know council covered some information with you already, okay?
Okay.
All right, now, at the particular time when you're looking, when you were coming in contact with this sedan, this vehicle in question that you testified about, when you were looking in your mirrors, was there anything obstructing your view to that vehicle?
Wait a minute, you're gonna have to rephrase it. You say you went to the mirror, and that's talking about when I initially turned on the street.
No, when you were driving past the vehicle, you were looking at the side, that's like you're
Okay, okay.
Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. Was there anything that was obstructing your view when you were looking in your rear mirror, where the side mirror toward that vehicle?
No, sir.
Okay. Now, on a particular date and time, when you had an opportunity to, you called 911 as well, correct?
Yes.
How much time transpired between the time you called 911 and when you went back to the scene?
I really don't know. You're gonna have to get that from dispatch because, like I said, I continued on working. And she called me and told me I needed to go back. The officers needed to speak with me.
Your initial impression when you had contacted 911 is that an individual may have been beating their girlfriend, right?
Well, yeah, because I have seen that in life, you know what I'm saying? As I turned the corner, I thought it was a guy slapping his girl, you know? I didn't know.
Now, on direct examination, counsel asked you, and you had indicated that you were guessing that someone may have been pulling someone from a vehicle. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You're not able to tell for certain what it was that was being removed from the car, right?
No, I could not.
And the frustration is because of your vantage point, how far away you were, correct?
Correct.
Did you observe any blood or anything in the street as you were driving?
No, there was nobody out there, just that person standing by the vehicle.
And the only thing that, the only tool that you may have noticed on that particular day is you described it as a claw hammer, correct?
Yes.
Okay, would you describe it as large or small?
It's a regular claw hammer that, you know, when you hammer nails with.
And you were able to see it clear enough that the claw would be behind the hammering portion, correct?
Yes.
I don't have anything further.
May you redirect?
Okay.
Right. So, thank you, Mr. Lewis, you said that. You can get to the next one, is really, we're gonna call a different case. This will watch you to the next one. Prosecutor out there?
He's on his way in right now.
Calling case number 2061743, the people of the state of Michigan versus Henry Catraz. Defendant is charged with count 1, robbery armed, count 2, robbery armed, count 3, count 4, weapons owning firearm. This matter is scheduled for examination.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Prosecutor Blair, for the people.
And good afternoon, Your Honor. Neighborhood Defender Service of Detroit by Henry Schneider, 82476 for Mr. Henry Catraz.
All right, set for examiner, go forward.
At this time, the people are prepared to go forward. We do not have either complaining witness here. We did, our office made contact with the complaining witness yesterday, one of them yesterday, and gave the date and location. Also sent, to that individual, the female complaining witness, directly to her email, but she's not here today. I also have detective here to quickly indicate on the record what his efforts are.
Are you answering?
Detective Marcus, Marcus, Rice, RICE.
Ryan, you made efforts to contact you, those with complaints in the case?
No, sir, we're not able to. We made multiple attempts, including calling, going to illicit addresses, and drop off subpoenas, as well as emailing, and we received no contact.
Right, and I left also a voicemail message, last known number to Mr. Crawford.
Your Honor, move for dismissal at this time.
All right, now we discuss without prejudice. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Let's go, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Thank you for calling, Judge.
Oh, no problem.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
You got it.
Pardon me?
Yeah, you got it.
Thank you. Yeah.
You see up there? Okay, ready? One, another. I will see that again.
Okay, I'm gonna get a docket and I'll head out. Thank you, Judge. We'll see you. Have a great weekend.
Okay, good.
What's that?
You swear or affirm to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God.
I do.
Put it all right here. Okay, now repeat this.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon,
All right. Can you please tell us your name?
Officer Julian Shanti.
Officer Shanti, how long have you been an officer and where?
About a year now.
And where do you work?
I work for the Detroit Police Department.
Were you working on or about January 21st of 2021, sir?
I was.
And were you working along with a partner?
I was working with a partner,
What was your partner's name, if you recall?
Officer Randy Sturley.
And did you have an opportunity to go with your partner to the intersection of Elmer and Edsel Ford Service Drive in the city of Detroit?
I did.
And what was what brought you to that location?
A police run for a felonious assault.
And did you in fact arrive at that location based on the sort of radio run that you received?
My partner and I were backing another unit that had arrived. We got there approximately 9:30 that morning.
Okay, thank you. Now, when you get there around 9:30 in the morning, are there other officers that were on the scene?
When my partner and I arrived, I observed Officer Chastain and Officer Alvarado already on scene.
And did you notice anyone on the ground at that time?
Yes, sir. I noticed a black male, older, appeared to be in his 40s, lying on his back in the street.
And the area where this African-American male was lying in the street, did you see any vehicle around the area that he was lying?
No, sir.
And was this person moving at all?
Yes, he was moving.
Were Were you able to tell if he was attempting to speak to you?
No, he was just, he was having agonal breathing, difficulty breathing.
Were you able to observe any injuries on this individual?
I observed lacerations on his face and head, and at one point he had rolled onto his side, and I observed stab wounds in his upper back.
And this is your observation?
Yes, sir.
Were you attempting to ask him any questions at that time?
I was trying to ascertain information about him and what might have happened, but he was unable to respond to me.
And at that time, when you noticed the extent of his injuries, the laceration on the face and the stab wound in the back, was there any request for aid for this individual?
My partner had radioed for an ETA on medics to the scene, and radio provided us an 8-minute ETA.
And based on the scene as you saw it and this individual who needed attention, what did 8 minutes mean to you in terms of a long or short time?
Based on the injuries that this individual had sustained, my partner and I had deemed 8 minutes to be too long, and he was transported by police officers to the hospital.
Now, when you are on scene in close proximity to this injured man, did you see any identifying information on the ground where he was lying?
No, sir.
Did you see any cell phone on the ground where he was lying?
No, sir.
Did you see any weapon or anything that could be fashioned as a weapon that would be lying on the ground next to him?
No, sir.
Was there any other individual, civilian, I should say, at the scene when this individual was lying on the ground?
No, sir.
And you said this individual was transported to the hospital?
Yes, sir.
Was it transported by you or some other officer?
He was transported by officers Alvarado and Chastain.
At some point, did you become aware of the condition of this person?
Officer Chastain notified me at about 9:50 that morning.
No, that's fine. I'll move on to the next question. I won't ask you what you were notified, but were you notified of his condition when he was at the hospital?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Did you remain on scene after he was transported, the individual?
After the individual was transported, my partner and I assumed the primary role at the scene and taped it off for evidence preservation.
At any point in time, were you able to identify or make an identification of that person?
I do not believe so.
Would that person's name be indicated in a report of some kind that you drafted?
Not in my report.
Looking at your report, perhaps refresh your memory as to that?
Objection. Yeah, you can't suggest them to look at something. He didn't say, it said it's not in his report.
I'll ask you, based on your memory today, well, strike the day of the incident of January 21st, 2020, did you ever become aware of that person?
I do not recall.
While you were at the scene, did you make contact with any other civilians? Particularly by the name of George?
Yes, sir.
And did Mr. Lewis, without telling me what he said, but did Mr. Lewis indicate to you what he observed on that day?
Yes, I asked Mr. Lewis specifically what he observed while he was in the area.
And without telling me what he said, did he indicate to you what he was doing in the area and what he observed?
Yes.
Based on that information that was provided to you by Mr. Lewis about what you observed and why he was there, did you forward that information on to other members of law enforcement?
Yes, I placed that information in my report and was provided to other members of law enforcement.
And were you wearing a functional body camera at the time that you arrived on scene?
Yes, sir.
And are you familiar with the contents of that body camera?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Brochstedt, you want to do it?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
That's short.
Yes. I want to reach well.
I have no objection. I think that's an accurate screen cap. I don't really understand how it's relevant, but other than being macabre.
And, Officer handing you has been a one-page exhibit marked as people's number 4. Can you take a look at that for me, sir? You have a chance to see that?
Yes.
And would that be a fair and accurate reflection of a still shot from your particular body camera, sir?
Yes, sir.
Does it also indicate your name at the top of that exhibit?
It indicates my body camera number, sir.
Okay. Does it indicate the date and time that would have been captured based on your body?
I'm not sure.
Directing your attention to the top portion of the photo speech.
I'm not sure.
Okay. But are you familiar with that particular view of your still shot with your body camera?
Yes, sir.
Judge, I move to the mission.
I subject on relevancy grounds. I don't see what the relevance of like a photo of a man's final moments is to this case.
I don't know where the goes, so I admit it, but this is a picture of the scene as it was on that morning. Relevant. I don't know. Well, I give you a chance to make it.
I wasn't gonna say no objection. I agree with council. I don't think it's relevant, but it's not that big.
So there's no objection then?
No objection. Admit it.
Thank you. Now, and does that photo show that the person that's in that photo, is that the same African-American male that you described to us earlier that was injured with stab wounds and some lacerations on the face?
Yes, sir.
And there's no vehicle in that particular still shot, is there?
No, sir.
And is that fairly accurate represents the scene is your body?
Very all that.
Fair enough. Well, then I'll move on. I'll move on. I don't think further then.
No publish it.
I don't know, publish.
Give me 1 second, Judge. Officer Shanti, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Your first name is Julian?
Yes, sir.
And I think you said there were 2 other officers that were already at the scene when you and your partner arrived.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I think your partner, you said, is Officer Sterling?
Yes, sir.
He's a big white guy?
Yes, sir.
Little heavy set?
Yes, sir.
Now, after after you picked up the person off the ground and got them into the car, you stayed on the scene while Officer Chastain conveyed that individual to the hospital, correct?
Yes,
Or at least you thought they were going to the hospital. Now, as you stayed on the scene, eventually an individual returned that Mr. Abu Zaid referenced during the direct questioning, correct?
Yes, sir.
And after speaking with that person, you actually went back and wrote a report regarding your entire experience that day, correct?
Yes, sir.
And one of the things in your report captured that actual witness interview you did with this man. Is that correct? And that man's name was George Lewis.
Yes, sir.
And George Lewis described the people that he saw outside the car as possibly white or Hispanic, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, I'm completely impeachment because Mr. Lewis denies it. He said he told me.
I can't impeach Mr. Lewis. Only impeach Mr. Lewis. Lewis.
He heard what Mr. Lewis said. And I could play the body on camera of him saying it if that's helpful. But I did confront Mr. Lewis and said, did you tell this police officer this statement? He said, I said this instead. And now I'm asking this officer, what was it Mr. Lewis said?
I'm confused. I don't know what this is. I don't know what statement is. I asked the
How about
specific.
I don't even know why we're going into it, what the issue is. Mr. Lewis testified he couldn't say what the person looked like, other than possibly either a light-skinned black person or a darker-skinned Hispanic person, or he doesn't know. He didn't know if it was a man or a woman. So why are we going into it?
Because what Mr. Lewis said on the scene was, he did not say black, that did not come up. He said,
It doesn't matter, that's the whole point. I go by what he said in court.
and that's why I asked him the question about his memory being better today, or what he
I understand
initially
that.
saw.
I go by what he said in court. In court, he says he can't identify anybody other than that there was a person. He knows it's a human being. That's all he knew. It was a human being of small frame. He couldn't tell if they were black, white, Hispanic, Asian, whatever. He doesn't know. So why are we going back into this?
Because the moment of, and my argument to the court would be during the argument phase, that is the more reliable
It
information.
doesn't matter. No, it doesn't matter. No, it's not. It doesn't, I don't care what the moment of. I have to go by what I hear in court. And what I heard in court is that he can't identify anybody, so it's irrelevant to keep going into it. It might be a trial issue if this goes to trial, but it's definitely not an exam issue. That's the only thing I'm trying to get you to understand.
No, and I understand the court. And just for the record, I understand the court's ruling, is that I think that position would undercut the ability to impeach a witness and thereby make accurate credibility determination about witness's testimony if the court was just going by what somebody said in court versus what they said previously.
I understand, but we don't have an identification, any kind of identification, other than it's a human being. That's the only identification we got from Mr. Lewis, that it was a human being. He doesn't know black, white, male, female. He doesn't know.
And I understand, my only point in the cross is that he was more definitive in the past.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Understood, Judge. Thank you, I'll move on. Now, did you speak with Mr. Lewis after your initial interview with him, between the day of and today?
No.
One moment, Judge.
I have no further questions, Judge.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon. Now, officer, you indicated that when you arrived on the scene that you were not the first responding officer?
No, sir.
Okay, there were other officers that were present when you arrived?
Yes, sir.
Was there a particular point in time where you personally were concerned about the physical condition of the individual that you observed injured?
Yes, sir.
Now, at the particular time, did you or any of your colleagues from Detroit Police Department attempt to place pressure on this individual's wounds?
I don't recall.
Well, let me ask you, did you personally attempt to place pressure on that individual's wounds?
I don't recall.
Was there a large amount of blood at the scene?
Yes, sir.
How long have you been a police officer?
About 1 year.
New on the job then, correct?
Yes, sir.
Over the course of your training at the police academy, you've been trained to identify when an individual may be gravely injured?
Yes, sir.
How much time elapsed between the time that you arrived and when this individual was transported away from the scene by your fellow officers?
I don't recall.
You say, okay, well, let me answer this. How soon did you respond to the scene after you got the run?
My partner and I were on scene within minutes of getting dispatched to the run.
Okay. And then, how long were you there present with that individual before you left?
I don't recall.
You've been trained on how to write police reports, correct?
Yes, sir.
You've been trained about how to capture the salient and important points in that police report, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, on this particular day, you indicated in your police report specifically that there was a fight that had taken place, correct?
I believe that I reported what witnesses stated.
Well, I'm not asking you that. I'm asking you specifically, did you categorize in your police report that a fight had taken place?
Judge, I think that it calls for hearsay, but wherever that's coming
It
from.
is, what's the relevance? Give me,
Well,
give me a problem, give me a.
did you draft the police report in relationship to this particular incident? I drafted the police report. I'm just asking, did you draft the police report in relation to this particular incident? I don't understand the question. You recognize that you're here testifying in the case today, correct? Yes, sir. You drafted a police report in relationship to what you observed on that particular day, right? Yeah. Yes, sir. Or you responded on that particular day, correct? Yes, sir. And when you did so, you were doing your best to ensure that the information in your police report was true and accurate, correct? Of course, sir. Okay. Now, during the course of those efforts, okay, on that particular day, did you speak with anyone that was present at the scene? Yes. Okay. Did you attempt to gather information from those people? Yes, sir. Did you just summarize that information in your police report? Yes, sir. Okay. Did you specifically put out a description of an individual based upon any information that you got? I put in my police report. No, that's not my question to you. Did you put out?
I didn't answer the question, so I don't know if it is or isn't.
Well, you began the answer with, I put in my police report, and I believe the council's objected to that, and I think it's a proper.
Well, he didn't object at the end, he just stood up. You gotta let things happen before.
Stop it. Okay. I'll re-ask the question. Did you put out a description, did you attempt to capture any descriptive information and place that information in your police report? Yes. Did you attempt to relay a description to notification and control based upon information that you got? I did not notify notification and control. Okay. Would you agree that that's a standard protocol to do so when you receive a descriptive information? Either myself or my partner, yes, that is a standard protocol. Okay. When you yourself didn't do it? I don't recall doing it. Nothing further, sir. Thank you.
Nothing further, Judge, thank you.
Thank you, step down.
The next one.
Yeah, how many more you got?
Judge, I have 3 total this morning. I'd like to get finished today. I don't know if the court's wrapping
We're
up.
gonna finish today, I mean, how many?
I have 3.
You got, okay, let me be more specific. And my question, your witness. The last witness, what did he say that I didn't already have? Which is probably not too much of anything other than the police transported the victim to the hospital. Everything else I already had.
Very good.
I don't need to sit here the same thing from every witness.
And I can assure the court the remaining witnesses will not be duplicative of what the court has already heard.
All right, then let's go.
Okay.
We're gonna go till we finish.
You're in America, some water.
Yes, ma'am, of course. There should be some custom
In the top drawer, right?
in the top. Yeah. Could you need any water? Can you? You all right? Okay.
Sarah, I think she wants some water.
Yes. Name for record.
Cecilia.
You swear or affirm that the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yeah.
All right. Go to the door there and have a seat. Any questions? You're gonna be asked a series of questions. First by the prosecutor, then by the defense attorney will probably ask a question. And I may or may not ask you questions, right? You have to answer all your questions out loud, verbally using words. This can't shake your head, because everything's being transcribed. And then we on the other side. Okay. Also, when you ask a question, please just answer that question in class. If it's a yes or no type question, just say yes or no. All right? They need additional information from you, just ask another question. All right? You all have a tendency when we talk about an event that is traumatic. We tend to ramble. We'll say this happened and this happened and this and this and this and this, and we go on like that. If you do that, I'm gonna miss something. All right? The only thing I know about this case is what I hear in court. That's why we proceed one question and one answer at a time. That way I can understand it and I can make the right decision. Okay? All right. And last but not least, because of the math, barriers and all that, it can be very difficult, and you have a very soft voice. It can be very difficult to hear. So I need you to please keep your voice up. You can pull that microphone down a little bit if you want. You can speak into the microphone, that will help amplify your voice.
All right.
All right, thank you. May proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Can you please tell us your name?
My name is Cecilia Wallace Perkins.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Perkins, you know someone by the name of Timothy?
Yes, I do.
And who is Timothy Marcus Perkins to you?
Timothy Marcus Perkins is or was my husband.
And how long were you married?
We would have been married 2 years, April the 5th.
What did Mr. Perkins do for a living?
He is in transportation. He was an Uber driver.
Was he working as an Uber driver on January 21st of 2021?
Yes.
Is that a date that you recall seeing him in person?
Yes.
And was he going to do a shift or perform a shift on January 21st of 2021?
Yes.
And do you recall the hours of that shift, whether that be morning, afternoon, or night shift?
It was in the morning.
Do you know the hours that he worked that day?
He just went out. Sometimes he got coffee and then he would start, so he just went out. I don't know what time he actually started.
His morning hours?
Morning.
Fair enough. And what type of vehicle did Mr. Perkins operate while he was working as an Uber driver on the date of January 21st of 2021?
A 2011 Chrysler 200.
What color was that vehicle?
It was blue.
Two-door or four-door?
It was a 4-door.
Now, would January 21st of 2021 be the last time that you saw Mr. Perkins?
Yes.
Based on your relationship with him and your marriage for 2 years, and I presume you were in a relationship prior to that, would it be customary for him to check in with you from time to time during his job?
Yes.
And when usually would he check in with you during his Uber drives?
Sometimes in the afternoon, he would come home.
You say he left in the morning. Did you hear from Mr. Perkins at any point on January 21st of 2021?
No, except in the morning when he left.
Did it raise any alarm to you since you didn't hear from him?
At first, no, because sometimes he'll come home and I was teaching remotely. So sometimes he would knock on the door because I was in a class. So sometimes he would just go to the basement, do whatever, and then leave again. But when he didn't come home in the afternoon, I started worrying.
Okay. And did you hear from him at any point in the evening hours that day?
No.
Did you ever hear from him on the second day, January 22nd of 2021?
No.
All right. At a certain point in time, did your concern elevate since you hadn't heard from him in quite some time?
Yes, in the evening.
All right. The evening of what day?
January the 21st, which is a Thursday.
Now, at some point after January 21st, did you have an opportunity to to contact law enforcement?
Yes,
All right. At what day do you recall reaching out to law enforcement regarding your husband?
Friday morning, maybe 7 o'clock in the morning.
Would that be the 23rd?
Wait a minute. No, it was the 22nd. I saw him Thursday. Was it Friday the 22nd? It was the next morning.
The next morning after you hadn't heard from him? Is that right?
Right, yes.
Okay. And which agency did you reach out to explain your concerns?
Southfield Police.
Do you recall what officers you spoke to?
No,
Okay. Did officers come to your location to talk to you, or did you go to them?
I talked to them on the phone and then an officer came to me.
Did you explain the circumstances that led up to why you were talking to them?
Yes,
Did you give them information regarding his phone number?
yes,
Did you give information to the police regarding the type or make of model? Sorry, that. Did you give the Southfield Police Department information regarding the make and model of the vehicle he drove?
yes.
Did you tell the Southfield Police Department that he drove for the company Uber?
I'm pretty sure I did, yes.
Did you also provide additional information regarding that car about the license plate number?
I don't think at that time I had the license plate number.
Now, did you have any issues with Mr. Perkins before you hadn't heard from him?
No,
How would you describe his demeanor at the time you left?
he was happy.
Now, is there any particular reason why you didn't notify the police that he didn't come back or contact you at the time that on January 21st of 2021?
It was late in the evening and I knew if he didn't come home, I knew something was wrong. So I just panicked all night and waited till the morning to call.
Mr. Kearney?
Oh, yes, I didn't know if you were calling. Yeah.
Ms. Perkins, I'm handing you what's been marked as people's proposed number 22. You recognize what's in this photograph?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Is that your husband, Mr. Perkins?
Yes, it is.
Is that an accurate copy of his driver's license as you remember it?
Yes, it is.
People move for the admission of 22.
No objection.
Okay.
I don't believe any, I don't believe I have any additional questions.
Ms. Perkins, I only have a couple of questions for you, all right? Now, your testimony on direct was that you waited until the next morning when your husband didn't come home and you called the police, correct?
Yes,
And you called the Southfield Police Department, is that
yes,
right? And that call happened around 7 in the morning, is that right?
yes.
Did you call any other police departments other than Southfield to report your
Not at
husband?
that time, no.
And
You indicated that the police came out, you spoke with someone over the phone,
Right.
and detectives came to your house, or someone came to your house.
Later on, yes.
And was that the same day that you made the call, the day of the report? Or
No.
sorry, I apologize. My question wasn't particular. Was it the same day that you called and made the report that they came and interviewed you?
No, actually, an officer came to the house. He just talked to me. He actually didn't file a report. I didn't know that. He didn't actually file a report. He talked to me and said that did he have any ailments? Was he sick? And he said, well, he's healthy and there's really they, would not they wouldn't look for him because he was healthy. He could have left on his own. He was over 18 years old, so they did not file a report at that time. I thought they did.
And so was there another time that
There was
different
another time. I called back Saturday saying, did they find anything? And they said there was no report. I said, I thought I filed a report yesterday. They said there was no report. So then some officers came to the house and then they took my report.
And about what time on Saturday, if you remember?
It was maybe 4 or 5, I don't know. I was distraught, I don't know.
I have no further questions.
Sorry for your loss. Sorry for your loss, man. We have no questions.
Nothing further, Judge. Thank you.
Thank you.
Watch your step.
Give your name. Okay, what's your name again?
Harrington Sheridan.
Harrington?
Harrington.
Aaron. Harrington.
Sheridan.
You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Yeah. So the truth, a civilian witness?
Judge, some of our officers, some are not, I'm not sure we can get into that. Are you an officer or civilian?
Civilian.
Okay, good. All right, Ms. Sheridan, then you'll be asked a series of questions. First by the prosecutor, then by the defense attorney, and then I may or may not ask you questions. All right. You have to answer each of your questions out loud, verbally, using words. Just get in, say, yes, no, whatever the answer. Also, when you answer a question, please, just answer that question and stop. If it's yes or no, just say yes or no. If they need additional information from you, they'll just ask another question. Right? I don't know your involvement in all this, but, sometimes when these events occur, it can be very traumatic. And when you're describing them, generally, most people tend to ramble. Right? So this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. If you do that, I'm gonna miss something. I get all my information on what happened on this case in the court. That's why we go one question, one answer at a time. Then we're gonna understand it. Okay? All right, and last but not least, because of the mask and the barriers, it's very difficult to hear. So I need you to please keep your voice up. You can pull the microphone down a little bit if you want. That will help amplify your voice. Thank you. All right, may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
I need you to keep your voice nice and loud for me so we can hear you, okay?
Okay.
All right, thank you. That's much better. Can you please tell us your name?
Harrington Sheridan.
Ms. Sheridan, are you employed?
Yes.
All right, where are you employed?
City of Detroit.
Are you employed in a specific unit or division?
Yes, I am employed by the Detroit Police Department Crime Scene Services Unit.
And how long have you been working in that particular unit?
About 2 years.
I'm going to take your attention now to January 25th of 2021. Were you working on that day?
Yes, I was.
Were you working alone or with a partner?
With a partner.
You recall your partner's name?
Yes.
What was your partner's name on January 25th of 2021?
Corporal Nathan Johnson.
Did you have an opportunity to go to a location of 13551 Riverview?
Yes.
Is that in Detroit?
Yes.
And what brought you to that location specifically?
I was requested to process the scene of a search warrant.
And did Corporal Nathan Johnson accompany you to the scene on Riverview?
Yes.
When you arrived at Riverview, were there other officers that had gotten there before you?
Yes.
And what's at the location of 13551 Riverview? Is that a residential home?
Yes, it is a residential home.
Were you able to speak to any officers while present on scene at Riverview?
Yes.
Did they inform you, that's telling us what they said, did they inform you of what specifically they were looking for in terms of collections?
Yes.
Did they direct you to different areas around the residence?
Yes.
Did they direct you to areas inside the residence?
Yes.
Did they direct you to areas outside the residence?
Yes.
Did they direct you to a garage or an attachment off of the residence?
Yes.
And your particular role with Corporal Nathan Johnson was to do,
To document the scene through photographs.
and did you do that?
Yes.
Permission to approach that?
Yes.
Just noting for the record, these exhibits have been provided or shown to council. I'm providing you, Ms. Sheridan, with exhibits 5 through 21 and 23 through 53. You can take a look at these exhibits for us. Take your time if you need to and look up at me when you're finished. Very good. Judge, I'm hearing a stipulation to the admission of the exhibits. That would be 5 through 21 and 23 through 53.
I would also stipulate there's a spill.
Okay, you're stipulating that, I need to know what stipulation, you're stipulating that these are photos that were taken at 13551 Riverview on January 25th. Yes.
Yes, Judge.
You admit it.
Thank you. And Ms. Sheridan, if I could take those photos back, they've already been admitted. I want to draw your attention just to a few of them. And I'll ask you about a couple of them first. You said you had an opportunity to be directed to items inside of the location, is that correct?
Yes.
And did you find any items of note while you were inside of the residence?
Can you clarify?
Certainly, I'm going to approach you momentarily.
You don't come to the side, you have to publish them. I admit them, I have to look at them.
Good, I can do that.
I mean, at some point, I'm just letting you know, but
Certainly.
you were separating them, I want you to make sure I get the.
I get to the whole stack, Judge.
Okay.
I just got to ask a few clarification questions first. All right, I'm gonna start with these. These are 3 exhibits that have now been admitted as 8, 9, and 10. You recall being directed to some items in those admitted exhibits.
Yes.
And what are we're looking at there?
Go one at a time, please.
Sir, starting with number 8. What are we looking at in number 8?
Number 8, you were looking at a medium distance shot of a claw hammer, a black backpack, and a green duffel bag.
And was that, were those items that you were directed to?
Yes.
Did you have an opportunity to take those items or look and photographs of the contents of those items?
Yes.
Judge, for the record, I think to make this easier, I'll share my screen. I have these digitally, so I can go through them, so the court can see them on the screen, if that would be a better option. Mr. Exhibit number 8 that you see on the screen here, is that the same exhibit that you have in your hand there?
Yes.
And there's a green duffel bag, a backpack, and it looks like there's a hammer to the side of it, is that right?
Yes.
Number 9, that's a closer view of the hammer.
Yes.
Looking at the left of the hammer, were you able to ascertain what that looks like, some liquid or some substance next to the claw of that hammer? Were you able to ascertain what that was?
No.
Here looking at number 10, that's the green duffel bag.
Yes.
Approaching what's been admitted now is 16 through 22. You've had an opportunity to see those as well, is that correct?
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna throw 16 up on the screen so the court can see it. And this is relating to the green duffel bag. Draw your attention to 18, moving along. These keys that were found in this, inside that duffel bag, ma'am?
Yes.
And 19 appears to be a wallet inside the same green duffel bag, right?
Yes.
Number 20, it's in your hand, it's also published on the screen. Would it be fair to say that that would depict some identification of the owner of that wallet?
Yeah.
And number 21, was this MasterCard also in the wallet that was found inside that green duffel bag?
Yes.
Can you tell us the name that reflects in the bottom of that duffel bag?
I'm sorry.
Can you read the name that's on the bottom of that card that was found in the wallet?
Timothy M. Perkins.
And 22, is that also an identification regarding Mr. Perkins?
Yes.
All right, moving along to what's in the backpack, I'm approaching you with 13, 14, and 15.
Okay, we gotta get the information from her, not from you.
Right, these are, I'm just saying.
I understand, right now, there are exhibits that are admitted, they're sold.
Fair enough.
You're saying where they came from, you know.
Understood.
You have to get that from the witness.
I will do that, Judge, thank you. I'm approaching you with what's been marked as 13, 14, and 15. Ms. Sheridan, can you tell us, based on those photographs, where the contents of those came from?
Those came from the black backpack.
Showing on screen as well, what's been admitted now is number 13. We see a number of items there on the screen. Are those items that have come from the backpack?
Yes.
Moving to 14. Were you able to tell what kind of, what brand of pants these were?
Yes, they're Adidas.
And lastly, number 15, can you tell us where this identification card came from?
This identification card came from the black backpack.
And can you just read the name first for the record?
Linnea Brady.
Approaching you, what's been admitted now is 25 through 31. Please take a look at those photographs and we'll move through a few of them quicker than others. He was admitted 25. Can you tell us what we're looking at in this photograph?
You're looking at the south side of the residence.
And were you indicated earlier that you were directed to collect or to photographs from areas outside the residence, correct?
Correct.
All right. And equals 26. Can you explain where we should be focusing our attention based on this photograph?
The black areas that are partially covered by snow, just below the bucket.
Okay, and I'm going to move along. This appears to be a closer view in 27. Can you just tell us what we're looking at here?
Those are 2 pocket knives partially covered in snow.
28, same pocket knife, is that right?
Same pocket knife, clear of snow.
Equals 29. Are these the same pocket knives that we saw in the snow just a few slides ago?
Yes.
Moving on to 30 and 31, these are individual photographs of those knives.
Yes.
And going back to 30, Miss Sheridan, do you happen to know what that's called? There's a tip on the right portion or right side of that knife opposite the blade.
A window punch.
A window punch. Thank you.
Yeah, Auntie, they keep on bringing me these dang on dandelions.
Put your system on mute, please.
No, these are flowers.
And lastly, Ms. Sheridan, I'm going to hand you what's been marked as and admitted as 32 to 37. Take a look at those. I believe 32 is already on the screen. Can you tell us what we're looking at here?
The garage associated with the residence.
And were you directed to photograph areas in or around the garage as well?
Yes.
Did you have an opportunity to go in the garage and take some photographs?
Yes.
And is what's in that garage listed here as we see in 33?
It's partially shown, yes.
Okay. Let's get a better angle. 34. Was that a vehicle that was found in the garage, man?
Yes.
Can you tell us what there appears to be a sticker? It might be hard to see from the screen. Can you tell us what that sticker on the driver's side window reads?
Uber.
Did you also have an opportunity to take photographs of some of the interior of the vehicle?
Yes.
Have you taken photographs of interior vehicles before?
Yes.
I'm approaching with 39 through 45. You take a look at those and tell us, are those photographs that you took on the inside of the vehicle that we see with the Uber sticker?
Yes.
And there's a number of photographs, I'm not gonna go through each of them. But highlighting your attention briefly, and the court can look at the rest of these. People's 39, there appears to be a red substance towards the center console area of the vehicle. You see that, ma'am?
Yes.
Have you photographed vehicles with similar appearing substances before?
Yes.
Approximately how many times?
Over 50.
And was that, sorry. I believe you also have in your hand number 45, correct? Should be the last one.
Yes.
And there appears to be some things in the photograph. Did you note, or did you take anything of note based on your observations in this photograph of people's story?
Reflected visible in this photograph is the card in the lower left corner with suspected blood, the paper towels, or with suspected blood or the red substance that are found within the lower right corner. A manual for the car, a Chrysler 200 for 200.
Is it Chrysler 200?
I believe that was correct. I have to double check my report.
And lastly, did you also have an opportunity to take some photographs of some individuals?
Yes.
And do you recall which individuals you took photographs of?
Yes.
What were the names of those individuals that you took photographs of?
Devin McKee and Lene Brady.
And is there did you see anyone that you recognized in this courtroom that you took photographs of back in January of 2020?
I cannot say for certain. It has been a moment since I photographed them.
That's fair enough. There's nothing further. Thank you.
I have no questions.
Question?
None.
Thank you.
Judge, I believe we have one more witness. This will be the last witness. If I could indicate to the court, Judge, this is the officer in charge. As an offer of proof, he would be admitting and giving the circumstances behind the statements made by both Mr. McKee as well as Ms. Brady. The statements are fairly long to some degree. My intention, Judge, was to play the relevant portions, the portions that I intended to play that I think would give more
If you're going to
context.
testify to it, why do I need to hear it? Why do I need to see the video too? I don't need both. I don't need him to testify to it and see the video. Now, you want me to see the video? We can show the video. You can say, you can just testify that this is, we were at this point. This is the statement.
Well, Judge, my intention was to play the video as opposed to asking him questions about what was stated. I was going to play the relevant portions that would be about a half hour on each side. I just want to make the court aware of that limitation.
That was going to be my proposal. I prefer the playing of the actual videos instead of describing the testimony or the statements. I would stipulate to the admissibility of those videos and.
You're going to stipulate that your client received, understood, voluntarily waived is right.
No, Judge. I'm stipulating the admissibility of the videos, that I wouldn't object to them coming in. The reason I say that.
No, you're either stipulating to that your client, because the video is an interrogation.
Correct.
It's your client making a statement. So you're either stipulating that your client, in order for that statement to come in, court has to make a finding that your client received, understood, voluntarily waived their constitutional rights and made a statement. So if you're stipulating to that, then I'll admit the video as to your client. But if you're not stipulating to that, then we're gonna start from the beginning and take it from there.
Understood I understand the court's view. I'm not stipulating the admissibility of the
right.
constitutional admissibility of the whole video.
All right. Any? The issue with you stand? No, the issue with you stand? You good? All right.
Proceed.
Yeah. Can you pull this picture while we're doing this?
Yes, Judge, let me get that in order for the court.
James? I'll spell it for you. It's K-R-A-S, Z as in zebra, E-W-S-K-I. Detective. Yep. Is that pronounced Kraszewski? Kraszewski, sir. Kraszewski? Kraszewski. All right, you're right. Kraszewski. 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 Yes, sir. Okay. All right, you're right. You swear or affirm the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Yes, sir. All right. So, George Floyd, you have a seat there, please. Please proceed.
Thank you, Judge. I'll get these photographs over to the court momentarily.
All right.
Unless the court wants to see them out of order.
I'm good with orders, man.
All right, very good. I'll just give the court all of them. The speed of the law.
And the defense have copies of all your photos, is that correct?
Yes.
That's correct, Judge.
All right.
May I, Judge?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Please tell us your name again.
Detective James Kraszewski.
And Mr. Kraszewski, you said detective, I assume you're employed?
Yes, sir.
Where do you work, sir?
City of Detroit Police Department,
How long have you been employed with the Detroit Police Department?
22 years.
Are you assigned currently to any specific unit?
The homicide section.
And are you adequately categorized as the officer in charge of this case involving people versus Devin McKee and Lonnie Brady?
Yes.
Excuse me, Renaya Brady?
Yes.
Thank you. Do you recall approximately when you became the official officer in charge of this particular case?
I was the officer in charge of this case the moment the original police run came out for a disturbance / person assaulted over on Elmer and 94, which would have been January 21st, probably about 9:30, 10 o'clock.
Thank you. Judge, am I approaching?
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, when you became aware of the incident that happened, at some point were you able to determine the person that had been assaulted and ultimately deceased?
At some point, we did find his identification.
And what was the name of the individual that was assaulted on that date, time?
Timothy Perkins.
At some point during the investigation, did you receive information that assisted you in determining who was responsible for what had happened?
Yes, I was notified by Southfield Police Department. They called me and advised me that they
You were
had.
given information, and based on that information, what did you do? I don't need to know what they said.
Yes, sir.
You were given information.
I'll ask you a different way, Detective.
Sure.
The Southfield Police Department, did they give you information regarding this case?
Yes.
And based on the information that they gave you, did it assist you in furthering the investigation?
Yes,
Did it further the, or strike that, did it assist you in furthering the investigation as it relates to the individuals or individuals that might have been responsible for this?
it did. It did. Yes.
And during the investigation, were you, did it lead you to someone by the name of Devin McKee?
Yes.
You see Devin McKee in court today?
Pardon me, sir?
I'm saying not to leave.
I'm
Offering,
sorry, I didn't hear the court.
not to leave, please, offering evidence that has not been put on the record yet, and you're just adjusting it.
Great. I'll do that, Jeff. Do you see a person by the name of Devin McKee in the court?
Yes, I believe, it's the gentleman sitting in the first row behind the defense attorneys with the blue mask and, poofy hair. If he can pull his mask down a bit, I can completely verify.
I'd ask the court to allow that to happen.
Allow everyone in the courtroom to pull their mask down for a few seconds, please.
Yes, that is him.
All right.
Knowing for the record, the witness is identified as defendant one, Devin McKee.
The record is so reflect.
Now, once, right, did you have an opportunity to talk to the person you just identified as Devin McKee?
Yes.
Where did you talk to that person?
I talked to him at Detroit Police Headquarters at the Homicide Section office.
And at the time that Mr. McKee was at that location, how old was he?
He was 16.
Given his age, are there any additional precautions or measures that are taken prior to an officer speaking to someone of that age regarding a case like this?
There are.
Can you briefly describe what those additional measures are?
The additional measures would be,
It's only relevant if they were taken in this case. So he could describe any additional measures that were used in this case. I don't care about any other case. Okay?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Based on the court's ruling, can you limit your answer to the additional measures that were taken in this case as it relates to Devin McKee?
yes. Before he was spoken to and asked any pertinent questions by any officer, a parent was contacted, which was his mother. His mother was brought down. She was briefed on what was occurring, and then before we actually talked to him, then we brought him into the room and then sat and spoke to them together.
What was Mr. McKee's mother's name, if you recall?
I don't recall off the top of my head, I'm sorry.
Was there a Constitution rights notification form that was drafted in this case as it relates to Mr. McKee?
Yes,
Would looking at that refresh your recollection as to the name of Mr. McKee's mother?
yes.
Unfortunately, what's been marked is people proposed 56. It's a one-page document. By looking at that document, sir, can you tell us if that refreshes your memory as to the mother's name of Mr. McKee?
Yes, it is Daphne McKee.
And at some point that Daphne McKee accompanied or ended up being present with Devin McKee prior to you asking any substantive questions?
Yes.
Now, were there any particular constitutional rights that were provided to Mr. McKee as well as to Daphne McKee prior to speaking to him about this case?
Yes.
How did you go about informing both Mr. McKee as well as Daphne McKee regarding those constitutional rights?
I advised them.
I'm just going to check on best evidence rules grounds, Judge. We can move this along by just playing the video. It's all recorded.
Well, before we play the video, I have to make a determination that the client did receive, understood, and waived his rights. I guess we can play that part of the video if you want. It's up to you.
Judge, I
But
don't think
I
the
mean-
best evidence rule applies in this scenario. Two, I don't see the nature of the objection going over the constitutional rights that was provided first. The court will have copies of the video. I'm simply going to admit, my intention for offer of proof was to admit this particular time rights form, explain the procedures that were done. If the court would like to see those procedures after this is admitted, I can proceed that way. But I don't see the nature of the objection at this time.
Oh, yeah, I'm gonna allow it. Go ahead.
Thank you. Going back to what we were discussing, so are there a number of constitutional rights that were provided to Mr. McKee as well as his mother prior to speaking about anything substantively in this case?
Yes,
Can you read the constitutional rights that were provided or read to Mr. McKee and his mother?
yes.
One question is compound, and two is a little confusing. How did you explain the defendant's constitutional rights to him with his mother being present?
The way that I did that was I read from this sheet, constitutional rights. It's in a first person mode, so I put it into a mode to whereas instead of saying, I have the right to remain silent, you have the right to remain silent. And then I read the 5 notification sentences with that.
Yeah. Did you get an acknowledgement from Mr. McKee that he understood those rights?
Yes,
Did Mr. McKee sign that constitutional rights form?
yes,
Did his mother sign the constitutional rights form?
yes,
Was it dated?
yes.
What date does it represent?
It represents the January 25th, 2021.
Was there a time that was indicated on that constitutional rights form?
If I can take a look and refresh my memory, I can give you an exact time.
If that would refresh your memory, please do so.
Yes, sir. 10:31 p.m.
Now, when Mr. McKee's mother's in the room, did you address Mr. McKee's mother as to whether she understood those rights that were read to her son?
I did.
And did she indicate to you that she understood those rights?
She did.
Based on the procedures that you followed with Mr. McKee, was there any indication that Mr. McKee did not wish to speak to you?
There was no indication that he did not want to speak to me.
Did he voluntarily speak to you did he voluntarily speak to you after he was provided the constitutional rights listed in the constitutional rights?
Objection calls for a legal conclusion.
Did he speak to you after you provided the constitutional rights form to Mr. McKee and his mother?
Yes.
Greg, I move for the admission of People's 56, that's the constitutional rights form as it relates to Defendant McKee.
No objection.
Admitted. That's admitted 56, right?
5-6, Judge. Now, after you had an opportunity to advise of the rights, did you speak to Mr. McKee and ask him questions about this case that we're here today?
I did.
And was that discussion recorded in any way?
It was.
How was it recorded?
Video and audio recording.
Have you had an opportunity to review the audio video recording as it relates to Defendant McKee?
I have reviewed it.
Is it fairly and accurately represented?
Well, before we get to that point, I have to go to what the constitutional rights form. Do you wish to avoid here as to Mr. McKee as to define receiving, understanding, and waiving constitutional rights?
I do.
Right, go ahead.
Detective, now, when you initially, you said you had a conversation with Daphne McKee prior to interviewing Devin McKee, correct?
Correct.
And at that time, you told Ms. McKee that you suspected her son of committing a homicide, correct?
Correct.
And she broke down, right?
Correct.
She sobbed, correct?
I believe so.
She was emotionally distraught.
She held it together. She was upset. as well as any parent would be.
And at any point, did you inquire of Miss Daphne McKee whether or not she was Mr. McKee's guardian?
Guardian, no. I asked if she was his mother, and she stated yes.
Did you inquire whether or not she had any neurological limitations that would prevent her from advising or helping her son understand his constitutional rights?
Yeah, I asked her if she was high or intoxicated.
Sorry, I said neurological limitations, not higher. Is that the extent of what you did?
Yeah.
Okay. Were you aware whether or not she had had a traumatic brain injury in the last couple of years?
No.
Were you aware whether or not she had any sufficient deficiencies in her short-term memory?
No.
Okay. Did you ask her any of those questions?
No.
Okay. So you don't know if she was actually his guardian, correct?
It was his mother.
Right. So my question was, you didn't know whether or not she was actually his guardian.
Ask and answer.
That's not, you didn't answer the question.
Yes, it is. His answer is his mother.
Right. You're aware that people aren't, the guardian of someone is not always their biological parent, correct?
That happens on occasion.
In fact, you're aware that happens sometimes when the biological parent becomes disabled, correct?
Sometimes.
Okay. And so I'll repeat my question. You weren't aware whether or not Daphne McKee was Mr. McKee's guardian at the time.
Ask and answer, Judge, just rephrase it.
He wasn't, from the testimony given, he wasn't aware that the mother had any kind of disability that would require that her son have a guardian. I mean, that's obvious from, I can infer that from the testimony given. We're taking from there, please.
Now, you testified on direct, or I guess we're still technically direct examination. Mr. Abizade asked you a question that the reason that you have the parent there is to help the young person understand their rights.
So that, yeah, so that they're there to protect their child's rights if they feel they're being violated. Absolutely.
And the testimony from what Mr. Abizade just asked you about, that portion of the interview was recorded as well, correct?
Correct.
So your testimony was describing something that is we can attach to splash.
Okay, you want to avoid here as to the limited issue of your client receiving, understanding, and waiving his constitutional rights. The rest of it stays it for cross. That's those only issues I want to, we're going to hit now.
Understood. I'm going to renew my best evidence objection at this point because it is unless I could play the entire thing for the detective right now.
No. Right now, you're void here as to your client receiving, understanding, and waiving his constitutional rights.
Right, and I'm saying I don't have an adequate opportunity to do that if I can't actually show the witness the recording of the actual receipt and waiver.
You can ask him any question about it. You've seen it, I take it.
Yes.
He was there, so ask him whatever you want to ask him.
At no point during this process did you ask Mr. McKee whether or not he had ever been interrogated before, correct?
I don't recall if I did or not. I'll be honest, I have no idea if I did or not.
You never asked Mr. McKee whether or not he had any kind of special education services that he received at school.
I don't think so, no. I did ask him what grade he was in, and where he was at, as far as school was concerned. And I believe he told me he went to Pershing High School and was in 10th grade, I believe, or 11th grade, 10th or 11th, I think. Yeah.
But you're aware that intellectual functioning is.
And now testify about what intellectual functioning is.
I said, are you aware?
And insert. Okay, I'll wait for him to ask the question before I forget.
Ask the question.
If you're aware that intellectual functioning is one of the things you're supposed to inquire about during a Miranda procedure, correct?
I asked him if he was in school. He stated he was in school in the 10th or 11th grade at Pershing High School.
And at no point Did Daphne McKee offer her advice or commentary on the Miranda Law? Is that correct?
What do you mean she offered her advice?
At no point did Daphne McKee say, okay, Devin, let's talk about whether or not you want to go through this, or okay, Devin, do you understand what this right means? Correct?
I don't think she did that, no.
And she sat there quiet, correct?
I don't know about quiet. I don't recall every second and moment of the interrogation. I knew she did talk and say some things. I repeatedly told them they could have a lawyer at any time, yet they wanted to still continue to talk. But I don't recall her saying, Devin, let's talk about this first. I just don't recall. I don't think that she did, but I can't say for certain.
Would seeing that recording of the Miranda procedure refresh your recollection about exactly what happened?
At what point?
These questions you're asking, what exactly Mrs. McKee said during this interview, whether or not you asked Mr. McKee if he'd ever been arrested before.
I believe I knew when we talked about how he had been arrested before. I believe, I can't be for certain, but I believe we did.
And sorry, I misspoke there. The question you said you didn't remember the answer to is whether or not you're going to interrogate.
Correct.
With seeing the recorded portion of the Miranda procedure, which is about 3 or 4 minutes long. Refresh your recollection as to that.
I'm sure it was, sure.
And I'm sure Mr. Avezé has already queued this up. So
I haven't, Judge, not 3 or 4 minutes long. There's an entire narrative that occurs regarding these rights and the statements and the questions that the detective asked this particular defendant. So
Frankly, whether or not he had been interrogated before has very little weight, whether or not he received, understood, and waived his constitutional right to make a statement. So I'm not gonna sit up here and go back and go through that. We'll hear it if we get to that point. If I make that determination. You got any else on voir dire as to his constitutional right? Go through it now, ask the question.
I understand that it seems.
It's not an argument, it's not a debate. Go on to the next question.
Is the court denying the opportunity to play the video?
It's not necessary right now, yes, I'm denying it.
I have no further questions on this, so I'd ask the court to exclude, find that there was not a voluntary waiver of Mr. McKee's rights, based on the lack of intellectual function, or lack of inquiry into his intellectual functioning, his ability to correctly read and write,
I don't know nothing about his ability to read and write. All I know he said he was in the 10th or 11th grade.
And the prosecutor bears the burden. Miranda described it as a heavy burden.
Well, you're saying that he can't read and write, and that's not, that's not on the record.
Right.
There's nothing on this record that said he can't read and write. The issue is, he went into his education, which is basically goes to his understanding, and he said he was in the 10th or 11th grade. That doesn't mean he can't read or write. There's nothing on this record that say he can't read or write, or that he had any other. See, you can't prove a negative. Saying that backwards. You can't prove a positive with a negative. That's because you asked, did you ask about any intellectual deficit? And he says no. That's not proving a positive. That says no. Okay, and you ask some other question. That's not proving. That's not asserting that is in fact a fact. That's just his answer to your question. And I can't take it as a fact. Just because he didn't ask that part, I can't take it that because you asked it makes it so.
I agree.
Okay?
I agree. The point I'm trying to make, Judge, is that when we're dealing with the waiver issue, I don't have to prove anything. I don't have to prove any facts.
Right.
The prosecution bears the burden of establishing that Mr. McKee could in fact read and write, that he wasn't suffering from any intellectual. They have to prove that.
He doesn't have to prove he can read and write. He has to prove that he received, understood, and voluntarily waived his right.
And I think there's an insufficient record to make that finding, Judge.
Okay. All right, anything else as an issue?
Well, I guess I just have a few follow-ups. Based on the admitted exhibit of People's 56 as an evidence, you indicated that Mr. McKee did in fact sign it along with his mother, right?
That's correct.
And does it indicate on the form whether Mr. McKee can read and write?
It does, in fact, show, I asked him if he could read and write, and he said he could. He said he last completed the ninth grade.
And did you ask if Mr. McKee was intoxicated prior to speaking?
I did.
All right. And is that particular topic noted on the constitutional rights form that's been in 56?
Yes.
And what does it say?
Not high or intoxicated.
Was there anything based on your interaction with Mr. McKee's mother, Daphne McKee, that gave you the impression that she was not fit to be present during this particular discussion?
No,
Was
she
there any,
seemed absolutely fine.
was there anything about your interaction with Mr. McKee during the time that you were advising of his constitutional rights that gave you the indication that he was not of right mind to continue with this, talking to you about this case?
No, he seemed absolutely fine.
Judge, I think
Okay,
it's
no, wait, hold on. The way it normally goes is if you make your proffers, then the defense counsel gets to voir dire, but then you went back in the proffers. So, counsel, I gotta give you another opportunity to cross-examine as to the other questions that counsel just asked. I can't see you.
Sorry, I apologize, Judge.
All right, if you decide you want to.
I would just renew my request to actually play the portion where we're going back and forth as to what happened. There's a video of what happened.
All right. Well, let me put it up. I will. We're gonna play the video. We'll just go ahead and play the video. Once we get past the point of the constitutional right being signed and we get into the statement, then I'll make my rules. So go ahead and play the video.
Well, that's the question, I guess, Judge.
About a half hour, right?
Well, if we're including, I suppose, may we approach that on for time issue?
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead. No, go ahead. No, we gotta go back to that now. You sure? No, you.
I'm gonna leave it, there's no kind of.
Why don't you just go now while we're talking? Oh, go back here.
Thank you.
All right, we're back on the record on 2155584, and that's people of the state of Michigan versus Devin E. and Lane? Lanaya Brady. All right, we had a sidebar when, well, one was about a couple of things. First is it doesn't look like we're going to finish this exam today. So we're gonna have to bifurcate it anyway and get another date and continue it. Because right now it's 5:10. But how we're gonna proceed, we're gonna get a date that's convenient for everyone. When we come back, we're gonna finish the issue of the constitutional rights as to Mr. McGee. We're gonna play, my understanding, the part of the video that deals with the constitutional rights is only about 9-10 minutes long. We'll play that. The court will make a ruling as to Mr. McGee. Then we're gonna go straight into we're gonna shift gears rather than going to a statement. We're gonna go into the constitutional rights issue as to Ms. Brady. Brandy, I'm sorry, Ms. Brandy. Right? Brady or Brandy?
Brady. If I put an N in there.
Just gonna, Ms. Brady, court will make a decision as to that, and then we'll go into the other videos depending on the court's decision as to receiving, understanding, waiving the constitutional rights. Is that a correct recitation?
Yes, Judge.
All right, thank you. All right. Oh, you said you're gone, you're on vacation next week.
Yeah, so the 16th through the 22nd. I am here next week all the way to Friday. But the only date I do have open is Wednesday.
I don't have a date open next week.
Okay.
I'm kind of cases. So you said you're going the 16th through the 22nd?
Correct.
I'm sorry, sir.
Did I hear that?
No, it won't be that week.
Okay.
Trying to find when I got it. I'm gonna need to set aside at least the whole afternoon to get through this. May 4th.
It's good for me, Judge.
Good work for the people, Judge.
Wednesday, May 4th at 1:45. Go through. All right, is there anything else?
No, Judge.
No, Judge.
All right. Can you get your exhibits back?
Yes, I would like that.
Not about you.
Something coming up.
No.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Is that right now?
Love you, Naya.
Love you too.
Yeah.
Love you, Naya.
Okay, sure. Or would be down there.
Love you, Naya.
Okay, staying. Huh? You guys okay staying? Because I always can go to the JDF.
Oh, that's fine.
Okay. It's just something I'll see. Someone's gonna see him this week.
Okay.
Or next week, Friday.
All right, so everybody else that's on Zoom, that concludes the hearing today. So we're gonna come back on May 4th at 1:45. Hopefully complete, this hearing. So I just wanted to tell you that before I close out the room.
Thank you, Judge.
Have a good evening, everybody.
Have a good weekend, Judge. That's all right.
No, I never saw it.
Yeah, I saw you take your headphones out at one point. I'm like, I didn't even.
No.
So I have to say, one quick, I'll send you an email for discovery follow-up for this. But I was wondering, medical transition toxicology testing. It's just, I was asking.
Sometimes it takes a lot longer to process than the actual copies also.
Yeah, so I just want to see if it's available.
If it's available, I'll do it. If it is, I'll do it.
It's something that Mr. McKee had asked about.
Sure.
Right.
I think, Jeff, we'll see you.
All right, thank you.
Bring it up, work, be the people.
Oh, George, we should have just finished it.
We would have been here till about that time. Those, the videos alone, take about 10 minutes to see each of the constitutional rights for the 20 minutes. Then the guy's statement was about an hour and a half. So he said he only wanted to play an hour. The new attorney was gonna want to play a whole lot more. And then the girl's whole statement.
But then, do they plan on listening to her full statement? Oh.
Well, and on top of that, he gives the next couple of weeks. The transcript.
Yeah.
Works in my book. Telling Eric I've been working at night.
Oh, my.
All right, here's the.
I know it's not ideal, but I can
Can you put that in there? With my notes? Huh?
I think, yeah. Yeah.
So. Here's the mom we're gonna be doing the whole time. I don't know about the whole time, I don't know, I'm not sure
Oh,
what time.
the Devin McKee?
Yeah, I did. When I looked up at the last two names, one was Daphne.
Oh.
That's his mom. I'm not sure. She got on, but she was definitely on.